We are red. Red is on.
That's awesome.
Welcome to the December 12th, 2019 Selectmen's meeting. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right then. Selectman Scanlon will not be joining us this evening because he's got the crud that's going around. So, move the minutes of November 21st to the floor.
Under page 2 of 3, under Selectman Constantino, she reported East Coast Flooring will be installing the floor next week at the Senior Center. It's December 20th, not next week. I'm not sure that I ever said next week, but
When?
December 20th. I think that's the date that's always been.
Page 2, Selectman Dawson, Catherine reported, Nish on Gooder Lane with business should be contacted. They are blocking a public road and hydrant. I believe the entire conversation said that they could be possibly blocking a public road. That was the complaint I received, and that there's a water district hydrant down there that they had trouble accessing. So if we could change the wording in that. Because I was reporting on a complaint that I received that day. When I looked the next day, they're not blocking a public road.
Motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
Second.
Have a motion that's been made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Bring the minutes of December 5th, 2019 to the floor.
My son said, don't stop doing what you want. He's got a final line in Florida, all he does is sit on one TV, and he do nothing, they do like he doesn't want to fly up here to see it. He doesn't want to.
Thank you, be so kind.
He's going up there.
Thank you very much.
on page 4, stipends discussion. There needs to be more information in the conversation, because somebody reading this will wonder why we even made the motion to pay the alternate stipend. Pay stipend. And we really ought to take out the word opinionated conversation.
Can you repeat that again, Catherine?
So if you read the stipends discussion,
I was still on page 2, go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry, on page 4, there's no reasoning for us to make the motion we did and to vote the way we did. We discussed our policy of not paying alternates. We had an opinionated conversation.
Conversation about volunteering and alternates and frequent
A spirited
I
conversation.
thought just further conversation.
Right,
But you see what I mean? There's-
Right, the
there's-
paragraph
Nothing
doesn't-
tells you why on earth we would have made that motion.
Made that
and
the
then voted
motion.
on it.
right. So what was the error?
Well, we just need more information
Right.
in there, the conversation
The
about,
conversation about what
we
the
made,
error?
basically I voted yes because we made the mistake on the form that
Right.
came to us,
Mhm.
wasn't filled out,
A little bit more detail
Yeah.
would be,
yes.
One of the other parts of it was the fact that certain boards and committees meet twice as often as others, and should there be a differential because of that?
There you go.
now that we're on that page, under Selectman Constantino, she talked about having a community service award from the Board of Selectmen. We are already approved that, so it sounds like we're looking for another approval of that. When she said she talked about having a community service award ceremony from the Board of Selectmen, discussion of holding it at town meeting. Well, so it sounds like we're reapproving it again, or looking for approval. So Selectman Constantino talked about the Community Service Award in prior discussion or whatever from the Board of Discussion, from the Board of Selectmen, and instead of holding it in December, we'll hold it at town meeting. That makes more sense. Something like that.
No, that discussion was about when and where.
Right. It was about when and where instead of the actual,
Yeah, get on with it.
right. A couple months ago, we had said, yeah, that's a great idea, let's do it.
On the same page, Selectman Dawson suggests the board review PD mileage reports. Can we put why? I believe I commented on how with
Miles per year averages,
yeah,
Yep.
the 3 frontline cruisers, one's getting more miles pounded onto it than the other.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of December 5th, 2019 as amended, corrected? Slash corrected?
second.
Discussion?
Yeah, absolutely.
Under page 3 of 5, this doesn't really fit in with this, under police department. There was a discussion, the second paragraph, discussion of the chief receiving donation toward travel and conferences. Further discussion of, that would end the discussion. So there's nothing that, who's researching it, that's it. It's like dead-ended there. There was a discussion, period. And then it says further discussion of donations to, will address the 1% reduction with the chief. So if that sentence doesn't tie in with the prior sentence, because further discussion of donations, we're not talking about donations, we're talking about the reduction of the motion that carried 3-2, that Tim will address that with the chief.
So you want me to put Selectman Cosentino requested a 3% reduction,
1%.
but you initially asked for
Originally, it was
3%.
3%.
Well, that's, no, it's,
Yes.
I think it's here it's already in the
Oh, yeah,
black
it is.
Oh,
italic. See up in the motion is fine.
okay.
It's just that it says there was a discussion of the chief receiving donations towards travel and conferences. Is that out of place?
Okay, so I will just add Jeannie will,
Research, whatever.
And I put Tim will address 1% reduction with the chief first.
Right, and take out further discussion of donations in that paragraph with Tim.
gotcha.
Got it, okay? The rest is, that other first paragraph is fine.
Is there any other discussion?
Well, I'm fine with that.
All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. We're a couple of minutes early, but the next thing on our agenda is the Police Building Study Committee and Kevin LaChapelle.
Thank you, sir. I'm just going to ask Brian Harris to join me at the table.
Be sure you get the
Please
microphone.
do, yeah,
Okay.
kind of put the mic between you.
Turn John's around.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
We also have members of our committee that are here with us, that you hopefully recognize. Thank you again for having us tonight. In front of you, and you also should have an email that reflects the same. You should have, there's three different items for you to look at. Catherine, you have yours. Joe, there was one on top of your line here. And then Pat,
Yeah.
you should have yours. So you should have also received an email from Jeannie that reflects the same. So you should have one that's digital, with the same as what you have in your hand. So what we've done tonight is we've brought the numbers we've all been waiting for months and months and months, and the numbers that we've been working on as a committee. This is the guaranteed maximum pricing that because we chose to do the construction manager process and work through this. The numbers, probably, I think the easiest thing to do first is if we go to the single page that says estimated police building project cost 2020. That is a sheet that Tim Pearson has provided to us. And then if you would like to, you can take the packet that's stapled together, the thicker packet, and put those side by side. And that way we can compare, if you want to cut right to the punch and look at the bottom line numbers that were, unless you'd like me to do it a different way. We can talk about the bottom line number of what it is, and then I'd like to have Brian speak on the contractors, and then we can talk about the other pricing that's included in that. My presentation to you tonight is not an in-depth pricing, it's just basically to hand deliver, tell you what we've done, and then answer any questions, and then we hope to come back to you. I think we're scheduled to come back to you next week for a vote by the Board of Selectmen on these numbers. So without any further ado, if we can cut down to if you look on the left-hand column where it says construction manager, and then it says milestone construction estimate 12/9/2019. That $3,998,172 number, if you bring that over to the packet sheet on the bottom line right that says budget total, it should, looks like we're off by 67 cents. It's rounded up? Okay, thank you. So that bottom line number on the packet sheet is the same thing that's carried over from the other. You can see that included in Milestone's presentation is the MEC fee at the 3.95 that we had discussed. The number that is not what we discussed is the contingency number at 6%. What Milestone had originally presented to us was 10%. They feel confident with bringing that down to 6%, so there's obvious savings there.
That was, I believe, a discussion between Tim and
Yeah, at this point with the GMP, it's not uncommon to be at that percentage. I think earlier on we had it at 10 because there was some questions in the design. Now that the drawings are complete, they filled in the gaps on that stuff. So.
There's more confidence in the numbers that, that we're seeing. When we originally, and the selectmen had received the same numbers, that originally we had received a number before GMP of right around 4.8 million. And once the anxiety settled out of seeing that number, we worked for 3 more meetings to work through getting that number much lower than that. And we had thrown some low numbers out there in the high $3 million range, and quite frankly, that's what they came back with. So if we look at raw construction costs, and you see that they came back with 3.6, I don't think any of us on the committee expected that it would come back that low. So, I could go on and on tonight about how hard we have all worked, including the selectmen, and everyone involved, the public, to try to get that number down. We did not cut program square footage out of the building, but we did, by some of your suggestions, we cut out pieces of the program on roofing and the carport, the Sallyport, not the Sallyport, the evidence holding area outside. And I have the list, that we can go through at a different time, but that's how we were able to whittle that down in about a 4-hour session down at Milestone also. So I think what we would like to do is have you review these numbers between tonight and next week, and I'm hoping that you email, you call, and ask for clarification on what you're finding. I'd like to ask Brian to speak about how we arrived at GMP and the contractors themselves, because if you remember correctly, the first night that we all talked about this, the construction manager process, and it would allow us to choose contractors, and that was important to the Board of Selectmen. And I'd like to have Brian speak about their process and how they went out to bid with that.
One of the benefits to the drawings being at the point they were completed was that we were able to actually put it out for real subcontractor pricing. So we put a master list together of vendors that we know. We reached out for people to see who was involved. We put them on the list as long as we vetted out their capabilities. We did put it out to the entire list. We have a list going of what the formal responses were back from sub. We have a lot of ones that were very interested, and then we put it on the street and they never bid. So we have a long ongoing list of that. We still have a few more people that we're trying to track down to get their numbers on miscellaneous things, but we've got the coverage enough to put the GMP together. So these sub numbers are in here are real actual sub numbers. They're the best of what we got in for complete, accurate submitted pricing. We definitely got plenty of coverage: mechanical, electrical, sprinkler, which are usually your key items. Site work, we got coverage on that. And we can go through as we finalize that. There's no formal commitment to any subcontractors at this point, because obviously this project is not approved to release the contract. But they all are aware of the circumstance that this is going for bid or budget bid at this point, and then would be pending the approval in March. And at that point, we would be able to go through and do what we call a formal buyout of subcontractors. So they're all aware of the schedule of the project, but we've got an ongoing list that we're tracking everything at this point. And we did try to get as much local input as we could. Some jumped on, some didn't, but it's typical for for a project that everybody's excited to be involved in, and when they, see the drawings and what's involved, they may choose a different route, but.
And Brian and I had a discussion before we came formally into the meeting tonight about local contractors. If there are contractors out there that did not put pricing in and that the Board of Selectmen know of, then certainly there's still time for them to come forward. So the example that he used is the carpenters. We only have one carpenter price.
One framing, labor only.
Right.
Yeah. The lumber, we've priced out and we put numbers to it. A lot of framing companies are still busy with trying to button things up winter-wise, so I may see some more activity over the winter and early spring, but again, I don't have to commit to anybody till then, so we have some opportunity to pursue those numbers. But under the nature of this contract, we have the ability to continue to chase and negotiate those numbers to get the right scope in line. You do get numbers that come in that appear lower at the first glance, but as you go through the scope, you realize we're missing a few things, and we give them the opportunity to either backfill that scope and fill out the total scope of what they need for the price, or they decide to go a different route. But we do give them the opportunity. There's a back and forth discussion on those.
Our committee, we talked about it again the other night about the CM process, is that, now that we're on the other side of the numbers, we can say that we're thankful that we chose the CM process, because if we had put this out to bid, there's no way we could have culled through these numbers as many times as we have. And we feel that, shaving 1.3 million off construction cost from 3 weeks ago, I mean, we never imagined that we would be able to. Actually, we're more than that. We're 1.3. We're at 1.9 that we've shaved off since our original numbers 3 weeks ago. So that's the numbers side of things. The other date that I want to make sure, I just looked down at my note. We talked about the GMP vote for next Thursday night. The other one that is not on your timeline, you have a timeline in front of you that I passed out. The date of the 9th of January is not on there. What we would like to do is schedule a bond presentation for you for January 9th, if we could. It wasn't scheduled because we hadn't asked you if that date was going to work. So
Is there anything on that date that you know of? No?
No, not at this point. no.
That's a selectmen's meeting.
Okay.
Right.
So is that your presentation?
it can be, unless you have more questions.
Kathy?
I have a question.
I'm sure.
Just one?
We'll start with that. That's a good start.
Well, there's some time for next week, or way to get it flowing. Once this project is approved, would you send it out to bid again? Because I assume if town meeting approves it, it's basically a not to exceed number. Would you send it out to bid again? A lot of contractors, especially at this time of year, they're pretty busy, don't like to bid projects that are up in the air and they might happen.
I think part of what we were discussing was that we haven't closed the door on any subcontractors, so if somebody was to approach us, we could. All the sub quotes that I have in here understood the idea that this is going to be decided in March. If somebody else was to come to the table between now and then, and they would be interested in the project, I don't have a problem talking with them and going through that.
But would you directly contact those people on the list and say, okay, the project has been approved,
Yeah.
it's going to go forward.
Mhm.
Would you like another opportunity to bid on?
We can arrange whatever is decided upon for the group, yes. I mean, it's under this contract, we have the right to reach out and do what we need to do. It's a little different. The direction from the committee when we originally started was to finish the drawings, put it out to bid, and put it into a locked-in GMP. For your end, we didn't directly speak about the contract, but I guess it's whatever the directives are from the committee, that if we want to leave the door open for people that are interested.
Well, it's just that with few bids, you don't get very competitive with
Actually, this was a very good turnout for subcontractor bids.
That was my understanding that you had like one framer.
Framing was the one trade that I
You
had.
only had a few in each.
Yeah, usually typically 2 to 3 in each trade, and that, in this day and age, that's a good
Oh,
turnout.
that's not bad, that's not what I heard then, okay.
We had one that was, there was 12 that were in,
Yeah, no, I got mechanically, I think I got 4 mechanical, 3 electrical, 3 site work. So that, to me,
No,
that's
that's
good.
not bad.
That's good
That's not
But you
coverage.
sent out like 10, you
Yeah,
reached
no,
out to like 10
yeah,
or
different
12, right?
Site work, I had 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or 11 that I reached out to personally and invited. And we ended up with 4, actually, for
Yeah,
site work.
that's
So
not bad.
the coverage is there. Concrete was good coverage, slabs and foundations. Framing was the only one, and it's a labor-only contract. So a lot of those guys, they kind of go job to job, and I have to put my arms around them to get their attention, and I'll just continue to do that. That's a daily.
They are an independent source.
Kev, I have a question for Kev. Do you want to go over what we had talked about on the number 10 on the packet? Division 10, that we had brought up and said, you know what, if the selectmen look at this, they're gonna have questions on it. And
yep,
maybe
I do remember.
Nate can answer those real quick while we're here. For
This-
instance,
this
the
was on-
Oh,
evidence,
yes.
evidence
Supply.
locker,
Yep.
armory locker.
There are some owner-supplied items that we had lengthy discussion over the other night. As odd as it may sound, we were talking about dispensers of, paper towels, toilet paper dispensers, and those types of things. That oftentimes, what happens is you have a vendor that comes in and offers free dispensers if you buy their product.
A penny a piece, yeah.
Yeah, so, the fact that the police station has brand new stuff up there now, that we can work through some of those items, that can just be brought over. One of the more important items that we talked about, I think is more important, and the committee thought the same, was when we start talking about, Chief, correct me if I say this the wrong way, but, discharge chambers for when they're, disarming, their weapons.
Right.
There's commercial clearing chambers that are out there that the committee felt that when you have something like a clearing chamber that's commercially made, that anything that can limit the liability of the town, it doesn't make any sense to not do that. Whereas I think currently they're using
A bucket.
buckets of sand.
Bucket
So-
is sand.
I have a question for the chief.
Yes.
Tell me why they're firing bullets into a bucket of sand.
They don't, it's just a safe direction if they have to clear a weapon. So it's only if they have to clear one, they're supposed to clear it in a safe direction. In a barrel of sand or concrete is that safe direction. But since, in the last probably 10 years, departments are starting to put in these commercially made ones, which are better, safer.
How much are those commercially made
$2,000?
It's
as opposed to a bucket of sand?
Yes.
Okay.
For just in case.
Yeah,
Yeah, we talked about liability. I mean, the just-in-case part of if it, goes through a plastic bucket. So and Pat, is that what you wanted me to kind
But
of?
yeah, and that in the evidence locker, and I think Nate could speak to that more than anyone here in the room, because right now, what they're using versus that, and the committee had decided to go with that only for liability purposes, and that's why, because it's a big ticket item, and we left it in there for the liability and safety. Go ahead, Nate.
For the evidence lockers?
Yeah, yes,
Are you
2
looking at
3-foot units.
You're looking at section 10, Pat?
Yes,
The cost. So I think we were all sort of surprised when we saw
instead of the fish tank.
all that's a fuming.
That's a
part of
Fuming.
it. That's another,
Okay.
That's different. So the first one's the evidence locker. So currently, we don't really have evidence lockers. We have old high school lockers that we cut off the backs and tried to put into a wall for evidence lockers. So the cost there that you see for evidence lockers, I actually went on today and last night. Every site I went to, those are the cost of evidence lockers. I don't know if we're gonna find them. Because what you find is we have a lot of little evidence that will go in small evidence lockers. We need ones that are gonna fit rifles, firearms. So we need different size evidence lockers. I think the other thing that Pat was referring to was the fuming hood.
15, under 15.
That's what's gonna That's what takes the air out when we're doing fuming, evidence processing, even for drugs, so that we're packaging fentanyl, it's not going up in the air. That's what's gonna take all of those chemicals and powder fumes outside, which we don't have now. Now we kind of, open the door, do it, and run out real quick.
That's the safety issue.
So,
Wow.
There are two other items I'd like to draw your attention to on the first page of the thick packet. And on the bottom left is the 4 add alternate numbers that we had discussed with you and at great length with our committee. And the carport number 1 was a great discussion we had the other night, that we're to the point in the committee where the carport originally we thought was going to work out well for mechanical, but at this point the committee is, first of all, we took a vote on these numbers the other night with the committee, but we're not going to push the issue with the carport and try to get hard numbers on that. The folding partition, we're hopeful that at some point during this project that we will be able to insert this add alternate number 2 for the folding petition for the community room. The fact that you could break that out into 2 rooms, we've had that discussion here before.
EOC community.
Yeah, the EOC and the community room. The construction piece has been all built out to receive the folding petition, but the petition itself is an add alternate of $26,000. And per your request, to see a number for metal roofing in lieu of shingles is $164,000.
That's the difference.
Yep. And then we had a discussion also with you about epoxy flooring, and there's no change in cost, epoxy flooring, and it was the tile, correct? The ceramic tile option.
Yep.
The ceramic tile option versus epoxy. There's no price
It's very,
difference.
very close in
So it's going to be
It's a wash.
whatever your flavor might be. So we have the choice of that. I think that is it on the numbers. Other progress that we have made that I think is worthy of sharing with you is Jeannie heard back, and I had a discussion with the Aqueduct company today about the actual numbers of what it's going to cost to tie into that line and other ways to move forward with connecting to water. The overall cost of connecting, thank you Clear Choice MD, because they knocked the pricing down for us because they just connected. But the payoff for that is going to be $13,701 for us to connect. Am I saying that one right, Jeannie?
Instead of the 50,000?
I am looking at their, yes,
It's a I'm sorry, it's the
10,629.
10,629.
Okay,
So it's 10,629?
10,629, 10,629 is what our cost, the payback to, yes,
To the
there's a
matrix.
discrepancy with what's on that front page. That's why we dug, that was, the reason that's not changed, Peter, is because we just found
Got it
it out,
today.
like, at the 23rd hour.
Right.
So you're telling me they've gone from 50,672 to 10,000?
Well,
That's
the,
because Clear Choice just added.
there's other pieces to it, is to remember, is that they're in their rate change, and it depends on what we choose for a water line as we move through that. There's your, I honestly don't want to dig too deep into negotiating on water tonight, but the fact that you have that in your hand, and they've given us these raw numbers this afternoon, in which we have not seen yet, and that's what all these other businesses have paid. So I'm just handing you that information for you to also peruse through. You have that study, you have these rates. We are actively working with some modeling of the building. We believe we would like to move forward with, and we have not taken a formal vote on it because it's progress in motion here, as far as a virtual tour of this building, the drawings. So in the virtual tour of a video, you'll drive in the driveway, you'll open the front door, and you'll walk in, and it will look exactly like what we want to build. So we're working on that now, I just wanted to, that's fairly fresh information from the other night's meeting.
And that is, so I want to update the board on that. So Gary had offered that as an add-on, architectural add-on feature for town meeting. And it's pretty pricey, but the chief has gotten a donation to complete paid for that cost, to have that 3D version presentation at the town meeting for us.
So has the donation been received?
It's coming, and that's why we're not committing to it.
Yeah, we don't want to make a commitment to it yet, just due to, it's so fresh this
We have
week.
not committed to Gary, he's holding on until we get that commitment funds in our hands, and then he'll work on it. But the price is $3,500, and we're getting that from a local business in town. Thank you.
I'll look to the committee. Is there anything that I've forgotten tonight, folks, that we said we would present? Other than, I did say briefly that we voted on the numbers that you have in front of you. We had lengthy discussion after Milestone and Gary Boudreau left the other night, and we felt comfortable with all of the work that we have done to this point, and culled out, we've raked out, we've pushed things to the side. We've come to the point where we feel that what you've asked us to do and go get numbers and bring them back to you, they sit before you tonight. We've lifted, there's been a lot of back pain on the lifting that we've done, so.
Well, for myself personally, I want to thank you for all the hard work that everybody here has done. I've sat on building committees in the past, and I understand what you've gone through, and very, very well prepared, I think, and effective presentation. Yay. This is a public meeting, and I notice we have a public person in the audience, and I was wondering if the public person would like to ask any questions of the committee.
No, I'm good. I'd just like to say thanks as well. As a citizen of town, he did a remarkable bit of work, and a lot of work.
Thank you.
And I have one other question, but it isn't for the committee specifically. So far, I've yet to hear anybody from the police department talk about the new police station, how that it works for you guys. What do you think of it? You saw the original one that was like 4.8 or 4.9 million, and now we've got a $3.6 million one, plus the other stuff that goes with that, but the building's been significantly changed, and I was just wondering how that would work out for the police department and what you guys do. Anybody?
Yeah, I feel we want it, and we need to drive this forward.
I think we knew we had to make some concessions, and we understand that, that it's an expensive project, and so we wanted to make it what we needed and what we felt would carry us into the future, but not ask for more than we needed. And so I think the three of us have been talking for several months about what do we really need and what can we maybe get down the road with some grant money, and that's how we have been in partnership with the building committee got to the same place. We think this will do what we needed to do and protect the officers and the public that are going in there. And I appreciate the committee's efforts to keep the footprint, to keep the square feet, so that as we grow or as we do need more space for evidence and records, that we'll have it. It's not a building building. So on behalf of the department, I want to say thanks to the Police Building Study Committee and the board for getting us to this point, because it's been a lot of work, a lot of hours with their sleeves rolled up, and without them, it never would have got to this point, Joe, and I can tell you, everyone at the police department really appreciates everything they're doing for us. And what we're in right now just isn't safe, and I think everyone knows that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that has any questions?
I just more of a statement. One of the things that we discussed at the last meeting was the fact that obviously we're all here as we feel it's needed, but also as taxpayers. So we want to make sure that we offer the town and ourselves the best value for what we could do. I think we all discussed that it would have been nice to have maybe a little bit more of this, or a little bit more of this, more of a want than a need. But I think because of the financing, that's what we looked at as far as a need. We want to make sure that we're giving everybody what we need, not so much a want. You know, we start out with a want, but everything you see on this, the committee's behind of what we need for safety, for future. One of the things that we discussed at the last meeting was if this gets approved and if the selectmen still want some of the members to continue on this process through the completion of this, there's at least some of the members on the building committee that would be willing to assist the selectmen in overseeing and being, deciding on what things that we can do with the selectmen's approval, obviously, but we're willing to see some of this, this project through. It's not, that's on your decision.
Well, we'll certainly be discussing that for sure.
I just wanted you to be aware that we're willing to continue our process.
I'm grateful.
The other thing that we didn't notice in the numbers here tonight is that there is a commitment that was the last public hearing by the businesses around that there's a good possibility that we'll come in for $450,000. That is not reflected in this number here at all, correct?
It's not.
No.
So that.
So just to anybody that might be listening on the tape, what you're saying is that there are potential business donations, I guess that would be the proper word, that would offset $450,000 of this total if it were to go forward.
That's correct.
Well, and it should also be noted that there are some items that we would like to move forward with on the building as a part of the $450,000. There's a potential effort for tiles inside the buildings for the wall. There may be other items, whether they're not on the add alternate list, but other furnishings that folks may want to donate. I think we have to just see where we end up with that. That it's not necessarily intended that it will offset all of that cost.
And it's not necessarily money. It could be
It may not be.
services, Okay?
Mr. Chairman, and that work has already started. The chief and Dennis Gaudette, who attended a meeting and made that commitment on behalf of AutoServe for a $25,000 donation. They are actively working on this piece.
I have great faith in those people.
So, in closing, we feel that it's important for the Board of Selectmen and the taxpayers to know that the committee is extremely cognizant of this current situation with the tax bills. The selectmen have been very open with us at meetings, and we get that. We're taxpayers also, so we know that. We looked at rough numbers the other night, and the fact that you have them in front of you, but on a $100,000 home, it's 14 cents per day that you would pay toward the project. If you were a $200,000 assessed home, you would pay 27 cents per day. And if you were a $300,000 home, and that's where we didn't go beyond, Tim didn't go beyond that, it would be 41 cents per day. We feel that all of the work that we've done to get this down, whether we want to classify it as good timing or bad timing, the time is now. Based on all of the factors that we've worked on for over 24 months of choosing the right piece of property, reducing the cost of construction for water and sewer. We know that that's almost a $550,000+ savings. All of the work that we've done to cull the price down, the construction costs down to 3.6. We know the factors of bond ratings. Tim just updated us downstairs. the bond ratings are better than they've been in over a decade. And they look like they're gonna hold true. So when we're very well aware of, we need to make sure that we come forward as a committee with justification of why now. And we feel very strongly with the numbers we presented you tonight, that we're proud of those numbers, and we're proud of the work of the 24 months that we've done. So that's what I have for you in closing, and certainly I can answer any questions that you might have. Feel free to email me or Jeannie or anyone for that matter, and we can try to clarify throughout the next week before you hopefully vote on next Thursday.
16-inch concrete walls, is that for an 8-inch shelf with a concrete block?
CMU block construction above grade, yes, and thicker walls with a shelf. Yep.
It has something to do with the 2-hour rating or something, isn't it?
No, it's a CMU block wall with a ground face block veneer, so it's a clear
What
space.
sits on the other 8 inches of wall?
It's two sets of
It's
blocks.
2 sets of
Yeah,
block.
it's a CMU blocker with a ground face veneer
Oh, I got
in
it,
an air
okay.
space. Yep.
I didn't know if the floor was gonna sit on. And I see we still have a tower.
The
How
tower,
tall is this tower?
the communications tower and the whole package is part of the police department's other soft costs, which are on your bigger list.
The owner is supplying that, Catherine.
The only thing we're doing under our contract is digging the hole because we're already gonna have site contractors there. At one point, we were pouring the concrete
So who's
foundation.
paying for the tower?
It's
It's
an hour.
It's in your
It's in the
bigger
town of
spreadsheet, it's not in
Tilton's.
my construction.
We are,
scope.
Catherine.
It's not in Milestone's,
Different pocket.
So
different
is it
pocket.
included in this?
It's on
Yeah.
that.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
It's not in the
How
construction.
big is this tower?
I can ask Ryan this one.
Ryan's gonna have to answer that. 500
It's a
feet?
minimum of 80 feet, not 500 feet.
Or
Just wanted to get a rise on it.
Satellite?
Foot tower.
On the top?
with the antenna. It's so you can have redundancy and reliability.
How tall is the tower?
80 feet?
I didn't hear that
Minimum of 80
part.
feet.
Oh,
80, how many?
A minimum of 80 feet.
A maximum of how much?
I believe 100 to 120, depending on where the antenna sits on the tower.
And why do we need this tower? We haven't had one in 20 years.
I know, you
Over
haven't had
20
one in
years.
probably 50 years.
Right.
So,
But we
you
have a
need something
tower.
that's more robust
You have a
than-
tower less than a mile up the road that you have free
That's not
access
our
to.
tower, though.
We have free access on that tower. That was determined in their site
You have to
plan.
run the cable to it. Listen, if you don't have a tower to have a more robust radio system for when your repeater, if it goes down, you need to be able to broadcast still and receive still.
So what have you been doing all these years?
Well, we've been using phones for backup and whatnot. Our radio system needs a massive overhaul. It's not working correctly. We have reception issues and transmit issues on the west side. We haven't been fixing it because this project has come forward. And if we can get a new tower and a better radio system out of it to either, for the future, if we become a regional dispatch, we're gonna need a tower, we're gonna need a repeater. I know you don't like any of this, but that's the reality of it.
I don't want to put up a tower so we can be a regional dispatch.
It became a topic 2 years ago when we went with 16-hour dispatch. If we ever had to go 24 hours, you now have the system to do it. If you don't, now you're relying on other people's equipment located elsewhere. And
but the main reason is there are pockets, and lots of pockets in town where
But you're always going to have those pockets where not flat.
but
Less.
we're using a 20-foot antenna on top of a roof.
Right. Just saying, my understanding is we have a repeater up on Belknap.
Well,
Can't get much higher than that.
Well, I think you have to remember,
But
Catherine,
that's
if I may,
okay.
Ryan, you have to remember that when the repeater goes down, there's no signal to the repeater, and you need local signal to transmit out.
I
So,
understand that.
and there's a misconception of, I think unless I'm missing something, that just because there's a tower, that is not for a regional dispatch center. that unless you know something that I don't. In my previous work experience, a building that was built in 1970 had a tower put up, and it was for single use for our functionality. And without that, you have broken signal. You can read any reports out there of whether they're line of duty death or whatever communication problems there were, it's when they lose signal. And in my opinion, I don't think we really want to have guys that can't transmit back.
We've had that for 20 years.
And now we have a chance to fix it.
There's always gaps. There's always going to be gaps.
Are we willing to take that liability risk?
But there's always gaps.
Well, yes.
There's always gaps.
Are we willing to take, is the town willing to take that liability
You don't have a
risk?
choice, there's always gaps.
Well, we do have
Whether
a
you
choice.
have your own tower or not, there's going to be gaps.
We have the opportunity to fill some of those gaps.
And minimize the risk. Because other than that, we wouldn't buy insurance, but tonight's not really the night for that conversation,
No.
I guess, but.
Okay, let's move it on.
Yeah,
Are
we're
you
good.
done? Good.
We're good.
I have somebody all lined up to take your seat.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it. We just have a different thing, yeah.
Oh, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You do?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you.
I'm thinking about 5 or 6
I'm flattered, I'm blushing.
other.
What did you say?
I can think about 4 or 5 other committees.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm glad
I'm
you're
just
on
gonna throw it
this.
in the office while we're going.
Ian, how are you?
Maybe selectmen.
Yeah, yeah. I will be on a Thursday night, so we'll be here.
I just like to study for it.
Yeah, I like to read through and stuff. I'm a geek. All right, Leanne.
Hi. Well, I don't want to be anywhere as long as they were. Thanks for having me back. I want to thank the select board for what they've done the past 4 months to support me. And particularly, I know it doesn't look like an office right now. But I appreciate your support of giving me my own area.
It's our gift to you. It's already wrapped.
So hopefully we'll finish that up after the holidays. But it's going to work really well, I think. I also appreciate your support on the new mapping. I know that it came before you last week and you supported that. I think that's going to be a real asset to the town. I know it's more money, but I think you'll be happy with it. It'll be good for the community and they'll have access to it online as well. So I've worked with that particular system and it's pretty user friendly. So I appreciate your support on that. As far as the department, as you know, we're down staff, so we are looking. We posted that job, and the closing is for 23rd of December. So we do already have 3 applications, which I'm happy about. I thought it would be more difficult to get some part-time help here, but they all seem to be pretty qualified applicants. So right after the holidays, we'll start interviewing those applicants, and so that we can move ahead, because we're a little bogged down with paperwork without that clerical support, but we're certainly getting by.
Question?
Yep.
Well, I remember, why are you waiting till after the holidays?
Well, because I want to get all the applicants in. I mean, it's
I
tough
see.
to, and the holidays are here. Just, we're going to contact them, let them know that, we are interested in them, and that we'll be lining up interviews right after. The deadline's the 23rd, so as soon as the closing, then we'll take the applicants and
That answers my question.
and we only have a weekend, it's Christmas week, so. And let's see, as far as the boards go, the planning board is looking at one zoning amendment for the ballot, as Joe knows, but the rest don't. We're looking at amending the ordinance for home businesses. Right now, the ordinance states that all home business applications go for site plan review, and that really isn't practical for the board or really for the community. So I think the board's looking at setting clear parameters right in the zoning so that if they're pretty straightforward, then they can be permitted through the code enforcement. We're going to have some requirements for square footage and for owner occupancy and what type of businesses you can have in home businesses. They are allowed now, they just are required to go through site review, and I don't know if that's really practical for anyone who just wants to run an accounting office or sell some products online.
I don't think I've ever seen one of those.
I don't even know if they come, I think they probably do it and they don't even come for site review, so maybe if they just
I
need a
think a
permit.
lot of people do that, yeah.
You know, we've had some in the past.
Yeah.
Question that I just forgot. Oh, is there an opportunity with that for people to come and express their opinion of that?
Oh, absolutely, it's required by
Public
statute.
hearings.
We have 2 public hearings, and we'll have those in January. That's why we.
No, I mean, so if the ordinance passes. The ordinance passes.
Yep.
And a home business doesn't have to come for site plan review, it could be handled through the land use office. Is there an opportunity during that process, application process, for people in the surrounding community or area to
As a
give
butter,
their opinions, abutters, well, not just abutters, but often so in the past we've had those, and I can think of one that was in a whole cluster of residential homes,
Right.
a development, if you will. And the neighbors there were lots of opinions, some in support and some not, and some, with really real complaints about noise and activity in their
Woodworking.
little residential area.
well, they would have to come and complain as a noise, because the ordinance is going to say that you can't have any parking on the street, you can't have any materials stored outside, you can't have employees, it's a home business, you have to go around, right? So the ordinance will police itself, and then if you had a complaint that a neighbor was running a business, it would be after the fact, it wouldn't be before. That perhaps there's parking and cars all over your street because of this business, then you could file a complaint, and then it would be handled through the code enforcement officer, like a building permit or
So there
anything
wouldn't
else.
be.
There would not be a pre-opportunity for the butters with this amendment. And there isn't really, I guess this through site review is a butters only, but there would not be a hearing for every, no, if that's the question.
Because there would be no site plan.
Right, so I'm saying, that's.
Right,
So
so
that's because this has come up before and I've never supported it just because of that reason. You're inviting a home business into a real densely populated residential area. And all those people that moved there moved to what they thought was a nice, quiet residential neighborhood with no businesses.
Right.
And then all of a sudden one pops up.
Right,
And
but,
home businesses can be almost inactive, or they can be very active.
right, but again, the ordinance hopefully is strict enough that those type of busy businesses shouldn't be running in these neighborhoods.
Yeah, we
If
can
they
see
can't
that
park on the street and
ordinance.
they can't have material outside and they have to be owner occupied, you can't have employees and you can't have trucks, so there's no odors. So hopefully the ordinance will keep contained to, if not, I mean, that's
So,
that.
for example, you could have a home with a huge yard, and you could have all the parking you want, so that doesn't mean the traffic pattern isn't gonna change in that little quiet neighborhood.
Well, it says you can't increase the traffic to what normal
Maybe
speed.
we could get a copy
Of the ordinance, yeah, and it'll be a hearing, and Catherine can come to the hearing, and, it's a proposal, and it'll be voted on by the public, so, I think they're just trying to.
So if I decided to take my woodworking hobby to a business, you're saying that I wouldn't be able to store my wood outside?
To a business, right, if, in your
So if
home,
I decided to have it
if you were
sort of
doing it
as
in
an
your home.
artisan and sell my,
You store your wood outside now. You wouldn't store your wood outside.
I'm just asking.
Oh.
No, I wouldn't.
Well, the
No, I
ordinance
wouldn't.
says no outside material be stored.
But a
outside.
lean-to would be outside.
So if I had some pallets or something that I wanted to store outside,
Associated with the business, you should, the ordinance says you shall not. Now, again, you come in and speak to the ordinance and ask, that's why they have a public hearing and people can,
Well,
and they
you're
can
gonna
pull
be-
this, they can even pull this amendment. We spoke about it at the planning board, we presented it, we talked about it, they all agreed they want to make this change. That's why it goes to hearing, public come, they can always take it off before it goes to ballot, or they can amend it at the public hearing, and then it's voted on the town meeting. So, that's just what they're proposing. It'll be in January, the first 2 meetings, the 2 meetings in January, they'll be addressing it at a public hearing.
So come to the planning board meeting and bring up your
I'm
concerns.
just trying to think of another business, sort of kind of like, my neighbors cannot hear my saws and
Then you're
things
covered.
going. I've asked several times, so that would not be covered, but if somebody else was doing it in their garage or something like that, would the neighbors hear it in in the village district, you know, where the houses are
The
so close?
proposed ordinance states that you can't have noises, out of the ordinary noises.
Yeah,
The true point of a home business or home occupation is that it should be not noticeable. No one should even know that you're running that
that
business.
you're running the business.
Right, it should be something you're doing inside your building, and it shouldn't be
I get it.
any more noticeable than normal
Yeah.
deliveries of Amazon or someone coming to pick up your kids.
Peter?
Does the town own an audiometer?
No.
So we're arbitrary and capricious on noise because we go by our ear instead of scientifically using a scale.
Yeah, we have noise ordinance.
I know,
Well, there you go.
and they're not that expensive.
Well, that's so that's the amendment that's the only one being presented for the town meeting, or maybe presented, it's less for the hearing, so that's.
You're gonna let us know when the hearings are.
It'll be posted, it's the next planning meeting, which is the second
Tuesday.
Tuesday in January.
What's gonna be at a planning board meeting?
Yeah, it's the planning board that drafts it, and they're responsible for it, and they hold the public hearings,
It's Tuesday
and they
night.
bring them forward, yeah.
6:30?
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be in the paper, the amendment will be in the paper, so, we'll get that out next week. So, that's probably the biggest thing we have going on. TRC has been presented to planning board as well, which I talked to the select board about a little bit, and, the technical review committee, I'm sorry, that's technical review committee. And they are in favor of that, and we will be doing that after we get through the amendment. That doesn't need to go to the voters, it just needs to go to the planning board and become part of the regulations to do a technical review committee. So I think that will go forward, but that's gonna come after we get through the amendment. Let's see, the only projects I see on the horizon is U-Haul's looking at doing a big addition down there. They came in and just discussed that with me. They haven't brought any plans or anything, but U-Haul down, oh boy, past the mall that way, on the lot.
Yeah,
They have a piece that they, two pieces I believe down there, and they want to put another big storage facility there. They actually want to put a storage facility, I think, similar to, the only one I can compare to is I know we had Bluebird storage in Hooksett, which is all heated storage, and on the back of it, they want to put in storage where you actually store those mini pods, and then you actually just put it in the back. So that's what they're looking at. They haven't presented anything or brought anything. They haven't really brought conceptual. They're just came and spoke to me.
So did they purchase that lot beside them with
They're
the house
looking at
still
that.
on it?
They're looking at
That's
that.
what they're looking at?
So that's a potential, and then I know that across from Lowe's, there's a little white house with a fence, and I believe it's abandoned. I don't think there's anyone living in there, across from Lowe's, right before the post office, if you're heading again down.
That's part of that Lowe's property.
That's owned by,
It's owned
Auto
by,
Serve.
that's owned by AutoServe.
yeah, well, they're looking at doing something there. TF Moran's coming in Tuesday to talk to me
Yeah,
about a
that's
proposal.
AutoServe.
Right, across from Lowe's, yeah. Yeah,
They own
maybe
Are you talking at the intersection of Morrison or down closer to the post office?
If you're driving from here, it's before you get to the post office on the right.
They both are.
Where Rusty lived.
Where Russ
Is it,
is.
okay, that's not Morrison then, it's the second one. It's the old daycare from way, way back.
Yeah.
Wow, yes.
The blue building.
I don't know, they said it was across from Lowe's and they're coming in talk, so I don't know what the
No, it's next to the
project is.
post office,
It's next to the post
Right
office.
next to the post office, yeah,
across from the Agway building, which is Auto Serve
which
now.
is AutoServe now. Is that what it used to be, anyway?
Yes.
And AutoServe owns that now,
Mhm.
and AutoServe owns the old Agway.
Mhm.
Yeah, they were storing some vehicles there, someone said for a while.
Yeah.
So they're looking at developing that, I don't know, looking at selling and developing, I haven't talked to them yet, that's Tuesday. So that'll be coming, those are the only two projects that I know of, that are coming forward. Zoning board is doing well, zoning board is down a member, actually planning board's full 7-member board with one alternate. The zoning board has 4 members and 1 alternate, so we're probably looking at making that alternate a full member. So we'll have a full zoning board. Their only thing in front of them right now is Paul Morissette across the street is looking to put some additional apartments in there. So that was around between zoning and planning, so that'll be coming up. They are having a meeting this month, even though it wasn't scheduled originally. They are meeting for that reason. Zoning board is, yeah, and next Tuesday. It's on the calendar and it's posted. And Mr. Morissette was told that when he was at the planning board meeting, so.
Sorry, could
I know, I guess he called and things, so, because normally they don't have a meeting in December, but, the board didn't want to put it off to January, they wanted.
so it's December,
Um,
next Tuesday.
next Tuesday, ninth, what was it, the?
17th.
The 17th is Tuesday.
At what time?
At 6 o'clock.
I need to get a lot of support from Zoe.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay, we can do that then. For the shred?
Yeah.
Okay, and the planning board did support the shred as well, so we got that, for us, that was good. And I think that's all that I have going on. The only other thing is, conservation brought up the, I think I'm here, brought up the, stream crossing inventory that they looked at, and in that, they,
This was the Jim Crops meeting to the
Mhm.
board on this.
and I received this, and their concern or question was that the hazardous mitigation plan hasn't been updated since 2008, and thought that that should be done. I did look at this, it was brought to me, but it looks like this hazardous mitigation plan was done, all the members that are on here are fire and police and highway, primarily one board member, one select board member, the superintendent of schools, 2 police chiefs, the fire chief, I guess emergency management was really the
How long ago
driver
was
on
that
this.
done?
I'm sorry?
How long ago was it?
2008. So you had, let's see, Kevin Chapman and Robert Cormier, Joyce, Steve Carrier, who was the chief of the fire, Owen Wellington, captain, Dennis Allen, road agent, let's see, Tim Davis was the superintendent at Winter's Farm.
Tammy
Tammy
Davis.
Sorry. And David Wally?
Wadley.
Wadley.
From the board. That was the original board that brought this mitigation plan forward, so,
Now, I sat on a hazard mitigation program update with the planning commission was there, and the chief was there, and the fire chief was there, and there were a lot of people
Yep.
at that table. We came up with a hazard mitigation program. In fact,
What year was that?
why you don't have it, I don't
you know
know.
what year that was? Was that the 2015 that someone says in here they can't?
That sounds like
Sound
about,
right?
About-
yeah,
it
yeah,
was around
3-4 years ago.
2015, yeah.
3-4 years ago. The chief might have, he was the emergency management
The
guy
police
for
chief?
this, yeah.
This police chief or previous?
Yeah, no, there's Robert Cormier. So he, as much as anybody would know, or Jeffries up at the planning commission.
Oh, okay. So I think, is the point you're trying to make is that, because initially Jim Cropsey came to the board and said, we want to do this, but the first step is to have the hazard mitigation plan updated. And so I went to Leanne, and it sounds like rather than Leanne doing it, it's this group, or because it's so many different people that need to come back together and look at updating the plan.
Yeah, I
Rather
think
than one
emergency
person.
management.
I
takes
thought he
the
was
notice.
focusing more on culverts and,
No,
Well,
but
that's
there's
what
a
he's
section-
doing, but
Yeah, there's a section in there that needs to be updated, and I guess the question is should we not get that group back together? Should they not be involved? Well, we still have to
We
find
gotta
a
see.
report
Why don't we
somewhere.
start, why don't I look for that 2015, and then I can report back and
talk
say.
to the chief, I think.
And if we can find that, kind of like an ask plan. So we'll see if we can find that 2015, if we can't, then we can talk again about it, and if we find it, then at least we have that.
Dave Jeffers, that's the guy from the planning commission that,
Lakes Region Plan.
yeah, next region planning.
Okay,
Dave
contact them,
Jeffers.
we'll see if they have anything.
Not Jeffers.
All right, that's all I have, unless,
Wasn't Dowie here at the time, wasn't Dowie here at the time that we did it?
He
Or was
wasn't
it
at
just
that
before?
table.
It wasn't, okay.
He may have been
It was
here,
just
but he
before that.
wasn't at
Right,
that
it must have
table
been just
then.
before that we tried to update it.
He might have been a part-time guy, or I don't know about the exact timing.
I don't know if it really falls under planning so much, the hazardous mitigation, just as emergency, but again, I'm happy to get the answers and pull it together.
Yeah, especially if you need an update, because I know one was produced.
So That's all I have. Anyone has any questions?
Is there any questions from any of you?
Has the lot across from Lowe's, that entire lot, they have quite a good plan for that. Has that fallen through? Is DOT still insisting on a turning lane out of there, which I think is ridiculous?
Not that I'm aware of, and I have to pull up. No, the rest of them may come Tuesday. Are you talking about the?
This was for the whole piece, including the house.
Is that
Yeah.
That was auto serve.
That fell through.
I heard there was.
It also includes the upholstery, that house on the right-hand side of that empty parking area.
Yeah.
It includes that parcel too.
But I also know DOT wanted them to put in a lane to the east, another lane.
I can get.
That was all part of the master plan?
No, we're
Talking about
something
master plan,
DOT
master-
wanted.
Oh.
That was their requirements after the site plan was approved.
I just think sometimes they put too many hardships
Right.
on development in that area.
Because they're trying to get the developers to do their work.
Well, you already have a light.
Right. Anything else?
No, thank you, Leanne.
Excellent, excellent
Well, Merry
update,
Christmas.
thank you. Merry
You
Christmas
too.
too. Nice decorations, by the way, excellent decorations.
Okay, we're now at the point of the show where we do selectmen's report. First name on the list is Catherine Dawson.
Oh. I don't have a lot. So I did some homework and found some stuff about stipends. From the FLSA, and we can absolutely have stipends. This is not for tonight, this is just a suggestion, Jeannie. For everybody to read. I'm proposing some language we put on the application itself. And I'll copy this so Judy can scan it and send it to you guys. I didn't want to kill a branch. But that we can discuss another time next week. I just wanted to let you know that the budget committee didn't meet last night because we didn't have enough members again. Do you have any update on, I know you're part of the Water District Board of Directors?
In Lockmere.
On Lockmere. They had any luck within your membership of?
We discussed it at our last meeting, and we're putting out feelers to, and nobody on the board has the time, but we're putting out feelers, and then our next billing is going to be a little blurb in there.
Nice,
that-
very
That
nice.
says we're requesting and what we're requesting.
That would be very helpful, thank you.
Because we've discussed it every meeting, but nobody knows anybody thus far.
Right, but I think it's great you're putting it out in your billing, that would be awesome. That would be
Catherine,
very helpful, because that number counts, so to get a quorum,
Indeed it does.
then that's all I have.
I have a question on this, Catherine. Is this for, is this just for regular people, or is this just for is this including the alternates? Are we gonna revisit the alternates?
Yes, just revisit the alternates. Alternate volunteer members who attend at least 80% of the scheduled meetings will also receive a stipend at the end of the year. So, yeah, I mean, and like I said, please, it's just a draft.
I like it.
Change it, alter it, whatever.
I like
We can
it.
talk about it
I
when
think
John's
we should.
here. Like I said, I'll give this stuff to Jeannie. And she and Tim were very right. You have to be very careful about paying volunteers. Very careful.
And you ended up running this by someone, or no? This is just your language. We need to,
This is my language unproposed, just a first proposal.
can we make sure that this is something that we can do?
Well, that's what this will tell you. That's what these pages will tell you.
Yeah, they're gonna send those papers to us.
Yep.
Did you send those papers to us?
They will.
I don't have scanning capability, but I was gonna give them to Jeannie so she could scan them into you and send them out to you.
Okay, and where are those papers from, New Hampshire Municipal?
No, this is from Cornell. This is a copy of one of the paragraphs in the Volunteer Labor Act. Which spells it out, but boy, you, yeah. So,
All right,
I have some,
so are you gonna peruse that, Jeannie, and give us feedback, or are you gonna send that out to us?
Well, Catherine just asked if I would scan it and send it to all of you, so
Got it.
that's what I'll do.
And then we can, all
it's pretty clear, but
okay.
it's very clear you have to be very careful in your language and what they suggest you do, and differentiating between volunteers and employees. And you can't pay more than $600 a year. I mean, you'll see when you read it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Peter?
Yours, Joe.
Okay, Joe. There was a veterans credit issue that you were going to look into. And I'm bringing it up now because this is my time.
Because this is your turn, so are you talking about?
Was the issue resolved?
Loudon?
Mhm.
Are you, is that the one you're, no, it has not, it's on my list. I have made an inquiry and I'm waiting for a response.
So it's in the process of being
I
resolved.
saw the gentleman today, they asked a question and I did tell them that, so.
Okay. I drove by the island on the way in here, and there's a big hole on the island.
They took it down? I didn't get to see it. It was down.
It just, it is what it is now, but it's gonna take some getting used to, I'll tell you. And,
Can I make a comment on what you just said?
yes.
At the rec, so if we're going to replace that with a tree,
Mhm.
and if we follow the recommendation of the arborist, he suggested an oak tree,
Mhm.
should we make plans when John gets back to do just that?
Yes,
As soon as the
absolutely.
spring as it can be done?
I would appreciate that being on our agenda for
Absolutely.
next week.
So we don't lose sight of it and
Right.
It
I agree.
get the
really-
tree
it's
ordered
sad.
so that
Budget.
nobody can say we don't have any?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
okay.
I totally
That's
agree.
that's a good thing,
prices.
but we'll talk about it
I
again
can give you a
next.
few acorns.
Maybe in the meantime, Jeannie can.
I've got all
prices-
sorts of acorns, buddy.
Prices for different heights of oak trees.
Yep.
Thank you very much. And parking. I've been, I don't know, people mention parking from time to time. I walk around downtown and walk in and talk and so forth, and parking. And then there was a guy at the planning board who, parking. I'm wondering how much, and it wasn't the time to ask the chief, but how much parking enforcement is going on downtown? Are not as much as we should have, if any.
How much parking, what?
Enforcement, we have
Oh,
parking
enforcement.
rules and regulations,
Right.
and I think that maybe that with some stepped up enforcement, people would start actually doing the right thing with the parking, because it's not happening now. At least that's my perception, and I would like to follow it up with some,
We have signs out here that are designed so people that are coming to meetings have a
Mhm.
place to park, but they're now.
Oh, I know. I know.
You know, I had an opportunity to have some time yesterday, and I came downtown, tried to find a parking space somewhere in the vicinity of Paula's, couldn't find a parking space. I had to park down in front of, by the Vietnamese place down there. And I walked up and I noticed, and I'm very familiar with 9 vehicles were business owners. 9 in front of Paula's.
That's too bad.
9. 9 places where people couldn't park because they
For
were.
businesses, because the business owners were
Because we're
there.
business owners, not business employees, but business owners.
And you know, for a business like that, that type of parking is very necessary.
It's cold.
Right.
And we did, the guy from the planning board meeting has a valid concern. It's like our lack of enforcement means that the spaces on Main Street are taken up long-term instead of not the short-term they were intended. So we should, I think the next time I see the chief, I'm going to mention to him that I'm going to pursue this, because I'm going to continue saying it every week until we get some action out of those guys. I respect the police department, Lord knows, but they're not doing the right thing downtown mostly. That's just my take on it. And John, no, he's not here. Pat, you're up.
Joe, could you have them address the speed too? The speed of traffic through downtown is, at times, utterly absurd.
And they should enforce the speed limit, but the speed limit's high anyway, I think, on that street.
But even if they went 25, it would be a break from what goes on through there.
Right.
Didn't we ask the state about that?
Yes, and they felt that the speed limit was not too fast for our Main Street.
Yeah, well, I'd be happy if they went 25.
But try
So would we?
Of course, they can't stripe it right because they kept the double yellow close here to go against the angled parking.
Yes.
Well,
Yes,
there
we'll
you have
certainly
it.
pass it on though.
Parking is a thing.
Yeah.
Lord knows. Hopefully we can make a dent in it. Or not, but we'll try. Okay, Pat.
December 19th, around 11:30, the executive committee is doing an ice cream social, executive committee and Jeannie Forrester is doing an ice cream social for the seniors, and we're inviting the select board, if they would like to attend, as a thank you and a Merry Christmas to the seniors.
What time was that?
11:30,
That's a Wednesday?
it's a
No. Thursday.
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 Gonna be hard for
Maybe Thursday. You know, I have to say, I saw yesterday a video on Facebook. It's nice to see something positive on Facebook lately. A change, I should say. There was a video of the a musical bingo game going on at the senior center, and the video scanned panned the entire main hall of all the people playing, and the laughter and camaraderie that goes on every single day, it just makes my heart smile. It just does. It's what an amazing addition to the town of Tilton that senior center is. Enough said. I think, an update on collective bargaining. We canceled Friday because of the weather meeting, so we are meeting on the 17th at 4:30. So we don't have an update for particulars, but after the 17th, I would like to ask the board if they would like to have a non-meeting to go over updates on the 19th, schedule some time, so it would be a non-public, non-meeting.
like prior to our regular meeting.
Anytime on that Thursday, the 19th, so it would probably be a non-public at the end of the meeting.
Well, it's not.
It's a
It's a non-meeting.
it's a non-meeting, public's not invited though,
Correct.
right? Because it's the sensitivity of the,
It's a
right.
contract negotiation.
right, contract negotiations, so then we can give you an update. We're pretty close to passing proposals back and forth, and I think it's time to give an update at that point, don't you think? That's it for me.
Okay, that covers everybody, and that brings up the town administrator's report.
Wow, 5 minutes ahead of schedule.
I'm just flying through this.
We do have a non-public, correct?
Mhm.
Because I'd like to add something to that non-public personnel.
So you have my report in front of you. I have wanted to know, kind of revisit this idea or this discussion that you all had about a crosswalk at Riverfront Park. And I gave you the information from DOT about what they recommended or what they're saying needs to go there. And wanted to find out if you want me to pursue this, because if you remember at the time, Senator Guida said that next year there would be grant funding available. I have sent out an email to DOT and Senator Guida's office to pursue that, because at the time, I thought that we might move forward because we got that one-time municipal aid from the state. But we're already moving into the next year. So that's my question to you. Do you want me to pursue that?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just up at the park for the Santa Parade, and when that event let out after the fireworks, it was just horrendous. People crossing everywhere, it's dark, and they're not wearing reflective clothing, and it just lucky somebody didn't get hit. I heard brakes, you know, squealing and whatever, and it would be a tragedy. And we should pursue it a bit. And
If we are pursuing grant possibilities, you're talking about this beacon.
Yes, because that is my understanding is what the grant is provided for that.
Can we include other sidewalks?
What do you mean?
So the sidewalk that crosses over from the parking lot to the Tilton House at night is, it was not visible, it's very dark there. It's screams for one of these, to
Well,
remind pedestrian, motor vehicle traffic that people are crossing the street there.
yes, I mean, the short answer is of course, yes, I'll look at that. I don't know what kind of grant funding is available. If there's a limited amount, then, and you're looking at a couple different crosswalks, you'll have to prioritize which one you want to focus on if we only get enough grant funding for one. So, but absolutely.
And my question is this the only beacon, because there's lots of them out there, that they would accept?
Well, that is the one that they recommended for that particular area, if you recall, because it's on a hill. So the Tilton House of Pizza may not require the same kind of crosswalk.
Well, there's a lot of these flashing beacons out there. Some are solar, some aren't. And they run in range from $1,200 up. This looks solar, but this has a lot on it. So I'm just curious if they would accept something without so many bells and whistles. And I'm sorry, I'm chuckling inside because I ran across today the letter that I received from New Hampshire DOT explaining that the more we define crosswalks, the less safe they are. I'm gonna have to pull that letter out.
yeah, I heard the guy say that, Bill Lambert.
So if we can,
However, you do have state statutes that offer you some protection. If I
Yes.
get hit in the crosswalk, I'm protected because I'm where I'm supposed to be. If I get hit out in the middle of the road, I'm jaywalking, I'm at fault.
That's true. Either way,
So you're just as apt to get hit anywhere, at least in the crosswalk, you've got a little protection. The person that hit you is going to be responsible for the bills.
This is what you're talking about?
no,
Well, let's see what we
So
can
that's
do
a-
about this one up there.
no, that's from Victoria.
Reasonable.
I forgot about that guy.
Well, is that a consensus to move forward with looking at this?
Yes.
I appreciate it. And if you're just casting the dice, the island, especially for the concert series, might be a cheaper than a police officer.
Okay. The second item on my action item is a stipend for Eric Pyro. He is the zoning board alternate. Eric received a stipend as an alternate last year, was expecting a stipend this year. He has attended every meeting. You've heard Leanne say that they expect the zoning board will be recommending Eric become a full member next year as they are in need. And in emails from Eric back and forth to me and to Tim, he feels like he got the stipend last year. This policy was instituted towards the end of the year, and it was his expectation as an alternate that he would receive the stipend. So I told him I would come to the board and make that request.
Peter has his hand up.
Is Eric on the planning board?
Yes.
I have a philosophical question because planning is sort of your legislative and ZBA is the judicial. And it's like we have selectmen on planning board, but we don't on ZBA because of the judicial. Should we have a member being on both boards simultaneous? That's sort of a potential conflict to me.
That was my question, and apparently it's not an illegal thing to do. Is it an unwise thing to do? Because he might, all right, for instance, we had a guy came in, he needed the planning board's okay on Tuesday in order, because he'd already been at the ZBA. And so he came here and he got our okay, and now he's got to go back to the ZBA, but Eric's been there for both things. He recused himself from any voting on that issue, but it does potentially create a conflict of interest.
I think
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think you're talking about two different things. What I'm talking about here is the request to pay him the stipend, and then the issue.
Well, this could be going forward on my discussion.
Well, we were
First off,
talking about two different things, but
Right.
an offshoot of that.
So,
Correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Pat.
my question is, this past year, has he been acting as in the capacity of an alternate, but as a full, because we've only had 4 members all year?
That's my understanding.
So
He
then
told
he
me
should be
he didn't
getting,
even know he was an alternate.
all right, so then he should be getting the stipend then.
He's
Because
an
he's
alternate.
acting as the full, without him, he's been voting on he's not an alternate. He's been voting as a full member because he stepped up, the full member hasn't been present. So, in that matter, why is it coming to the board?
Because
he's
he
an
actually
alternate.
is an alternate.
I have
They haven't made him
a
a full
potential,
member.
I have a potential
Well-
solution to this.
Well, he's been the definition of alternate is when the full member is absent, the alternate takes the full member's place until such time as they're replaced. Well, he's done that all year long, he should be getting the stipend.
I have a potential solve for this.
Right?
All right. I'd like to make a motion to pay alternate members of the approved list at the same rate as the full members of the board, providing that they have attended 80% of the meetings of said board. That takes care of Eric and everybody else.
Second.
why don't we wait for John to do this discussion? We were just handed that sheet and said to digest it for the coming week. Now we're voting on it.
No, we're not.
Well, pretty much.
This is got nothing to do.
The
I knew some of the
80%'s
language.
coming up. Yeah,
He does have a point. We usually do wait for us to have a full board to make those types of decisions.
And you are correct.
And I think then you also need to change your stipend policy that you just signed.
So last year,
But yeah,
we reduced the Conservation Commission's budget because we don't pay stipends
Mhm.
to alternates.
Mhm.
So a year ago, we did that.
I didn't like it then.
But you didn't institute a policy.
We
And,
did that because that was our policy.
And
We
then-
didn't sign one.
and then you did give a stipend to an alternate. And I understand that
Right.
there was an error, but, you know, to Eric's point, he's been serving on the zoning board. He got a stipend last year. So,
Not sure why he got a stipend last year.
He was acting as a full member.
But if he's, so.
May I interject?
Yes.
There is a motion with a second on the floor that really doesn't have anything to do specifically with Eric Park. Is there any discussion on that motion?
The discussion on the motion, I would prefer to wait on this piece of paper till John's here next week. However, the issue of Eric Pyra, I would like to keep separately, and I would like to see a motion brought forward on Eric.
Okay, I will withdraw my motion,
That was from a second.
so that clears that out of the way.
So can I continue my,
Please,
before I forget it?
please, please, I get it.
He's an alternate. He was sworn in as an alternate. He was not sworn in as a full member.
Mhm.
So if we pay him a stipend, it's as an alternate. An alternate's responsibilities, in my opinion, there's no rule written out there, should attend all the meetings, because if they don't,
That's right.
they're not up to date.
That's
They don't
correct.
have the information to
That's
act on anything if they're necessary.
Mhm.
The fact that this particular alternate has attended probably a majority of the meetings, I don't think it's all the meetings, but it sounded like maybe a majority of the meetings, I think is kudos to that alternate. That this person is an alternate until he's sworn in as a full member.
I don't, you know,
Is there a motion?
Yeah, audience though.
Sir?
Just a question about that. Is there, it sounded like there was an opening on the board currently
Yes.
for a member. Can he not be sworn in as a member? And then my understanding of the rule is if you're a member at the end of the year, you get paid.
mhm.
But you have to be there for 80% of the
But he's
meeting.
been there for.
He's been there. He's been there.
Not
for
as
every
a
single-
full member.
So that's the rule.
Well, wait a minute, the
That's why it's
definition,
written.
wait a minute, the definition of an alternate is to fill in a position of the full member when not present. And all year long, that member has not been present. That person's been absent. And all year long, that alternate has stepped up as a full member, period. As a full member, voting on issues, researching on issues, attended meetings, as done all the duties incumbent on them as a member.
He's an alternate.
You know what?
The question is,
Next week, we're gonna deal with alternates.
the
You know,
question
we need to
is,
put that to bed.
but the question is, we don't know what happened to the full member. Did they leave?
They moved, yeah.
When did they leave?
The year before. Like, the fall
Why
before.
didn't they swear him in as a full member then?
Right.
My impression was he was filling in.
I think
There was
the
never a-
board is new in policy and how things go. That's
Did we
my
find
impression.
that out before we vote? Find out why this,
I
Why
think it
this
was, I
person-
think it was just like what we saw with Conservation Commission, it was an oversight in paperwork.
Yep.
That's what it was.
do you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
Why? That's a mistake.
Ultimately, yeah, but I don't like the idea that we make special exceptions.
it's not,
Either everybody or nobody.
well,
That's me.
you know, I totally agree with you, Joe. I don't know why the Board of Selectmen, see, we get hung up on these decisions, and I think, if I remember correctly, some of these decisions were based on, we had a couple alternates that didn't show up, and all of a sudden now we're making decisions that we're not gonna pay alternates. And so the people that, the alternates on some committees that show up every single night, you know, on the real important meetings, every single night, and they're there, and they've been there all these years that they've been alternates, all of a sudden we cut them off, and we make these decisions, and then we overturn the decisions months later, 6 months, 8 months later, we'd say, oh, okay, now we find out that these people are really important to these committees, and we've really done a wrong, and now we're gonna overturn that. We should really think about what we're doing to begin with. And these are volunteers that come every single day, every single week, for us.
Next week, when we discuss it, the second prong should be, is should a member be on both planning and zoning? Because I don't think so, because that creates, I think, an appearance of problems.
I think that that's a separate discussion.
I understand, but it
agree
should
with that.
be, if you want to get me a yes on the 400, you got to work with me on the other,
He's just
that's
saying
all.
he'd like to have that on the
And I,
agenda for discussion.
I just said I agree with him.
Okay.
I just said I agree with him, but that's a separate discussion.
Okay, so we're waiting on John for a resolution to this, yes?
I think so.
On Eric too?
Yes, that's what we normally do. We wait until we have a
I'll
full
vote
board.
no.
This is a policy that we've had for over a year. I can't remember when we started, but I know last year, because I found it in my last year's budget stuff, we removed the monies for stipends for alternates from the conservation budget last year.
Do you remember the reason why? Do you know?
Nah, I just saw that in my 2019 proposed budget. So, I'm just saying, I think John should weigh in on it. Give him the opportunity. It's been a heated topic.
See, I want Eric to get the money. I really do. He's been there and he's earned it.
I
I'm
agree
good
with
with
you.
that. But I'm still a no,
I agree with you.
because there's a lot of other people, just like you said, who come and be alternates. So if John was here, maybe we could take care of this right now.
But Joe,
But he's not.
Joe, I want to just correct one thing, because
Yes.
I totally agree with 99% of what you just said. But there's not a lot of other people.
Correct.
No.
No, I understand that. There are others.
There's
There are
a
others.
handful of alternates that we're talking about in the town of Tilton. A handful.
And they come to the
Conservation,
meetings and they
planning,
deserve,
zoning, a handful.
they deserve that money.
So
And that's
Joe's,
my point.
Joe's right. Maybe we can resolve it next week and get them all.
Exactly.
Get it all.
There's
fixed.
just a handful, there's not a lot.
Okay, Jeannie for it.
So Conservation Commission, you have as alternates Janice Landry, who you gave a stipend to last week, you voted to, Kathy Mitchell.
And did she get the stipend?
She
No.
did not.
But
She's at every meeting.
Yes, she is.
She
But doesn't
gets
she
paid
get
as
paid to
secretary.
get, yeah, the secretary, she gets compensated there.
She does get compensated there.
And then, under zoning board, you have two alternates, you have Eric Pyra and Joe Justman. And that's it.
Joe can't be a.
And there's no planning alternate?
I was an alternate to the zoning board.
Yeah.
Before.
I was a planning, alternate to the zoning board prior to being reelected to, or reappointed to this position. I then had to resign.
We don't have selectmen alternates on the zoning board.
No, I was a regular
Or
alternate.
members, no ex officio members from, and that
He
doesn't
was
mean we
taxpayer,
can't.
Joe,
There's no
then.
law that says
So-
we can't.
So
It's
to
just advised.
Tad's point, a handful, like
Mhm.
3.
Yeah.
So hopefully next week we can,
I would love to.
me too.
I would love to.
Me too.
See if you wanna
Seriously.
weigh in on that.
Next.
Okay, so,
The
Jean.
next item, air conditioning for the second floor. Tim would like to encumber these funds. I sent you all copies of the proposals a couple of weeks back. If you recall, the recommendation was to go with Home Energy Products in Belmont at $18,100. The range was from $32,500 to $8,794 at the low end. And
So moved. $18,100.
Is there a second? Great, I'll second it. Just for the sake of discussion.
Yes.
Is there any discussion?
Are we gonna put on the details?
I looked at, okay, what they are.
Home energy products in Belmont at $18,100 for air conditioning for the second floor.
And I'd like to know what that actually means. Do you have this actually means?
Mitsubishi, right
I've
here.
given that to all the proposals to all the selectmen a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
That outlines exactly what,
Sorry.
and if you do approve that tonight, there's a line for only one signature, so I need one person to sign it. So we can get the funds encumbered.
I'll amend my motion to add that the
So-
vice chair sign it.
And then my second. For discussion.
I thought, are we still discussing the first motion?
Yeah, no, I just added
Oh, you
language.
added to it.
Yeah.
Just added
Okay.
language that Joe signs it.
Okay, so it's a compounded
Yep.
motion now. So, reading this, $18,100. So it says second floor. So nothing on the first floor.
Correct.
They have
This is
to-
just the second floor.
Yes,
These are air conditioning units only.
yep,
And are these the ones that go through the wall?
Yes.
Okay.
If you want them to come through the ceiling above, you're gonna pay $35,000.
That's a lot more
So are they
expensive.
going to come through the brick?
Mm-hmm.
Because one of these wasn't going to damage the outside of the building with these units, and I forgot what they said.
$32,000 one
No,
to the roof.
My
No.
understanding is they're all coming through the wall, except for the ones in this, the $34,000 one that have come through the ceiling.
These all have outdoor units.
back office is at the stage.
Yes.
Are you able to shut these off? So they're,
No,
I
they
mean,
run all the
well,
time.
I mean, are they gonna be up there, or are they gonna
Well,
be?
you're gonna have a control somewhere in reach, either a remote or a,
That's what I'm asking. I've seen them where, you know,
It'd have to be controlled,
you'd have to have a ladder.
or a thermostat switch on
don't
the.
you have the big one somewhere around here?
Do you need
I
them
remember
now?
when they came last year.
What's that?
Do you need them?
Do I need what?
The other ones that say door, window, whatever?
No. I've got all those originals.
What will they look like on the outside?
It-
It's just a,
Box.
We've had this problem now for at least as long as I've been a selectman and longer than Catherine's been a selectman. The heat up here, I know Johanna's gone home a couple of times because of the heat. Some of the employees have gone home because of the heat and not being able to regulate. The electricity alone, having four air conditioners sometimes going is astronomical. We'll probably save on that alone with these two units coming in, and it will be a lot more consistent and favorable, because we're doing a lot more offices up here, and a lot more departments are up here, a lot more people up.
So there'd be 3 on this floor and 1 back there, is that what I'm reading?
For the $18,000?
Yep.
yes.
Yes.
I read the other one, that was less money, but when I read the exposed spiral duct down each side of the room. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Is there any other, well, let's wait for Peter to slide back. There's a motion on the floor, so.
How much money were we going to encumber this year? All of it. Okay. Was that the amount from last year?
All of it, how much is all of it?
81, here, 18.
18-1.
For their, might been 2,000, I'll have budget.
And that'll take us down to 0, and that's it? No more comments?
For the air conditioning.
How much money do we have to encumber potentially?
That is something I think Tim will probably talk about when it comes up, because he does have a concern about us running out of funds.
I hate it when we have lots of money left over.
I don't think we have lots.
That's why it's good to use it up
Okay.
and appropriate it again.
Peter, do you have any other questions concerning the air conditioning?
I'm fine.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, there's a motion on the floor with a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous.
You would sign it and give it back, that'd be great.
And that's accepted by purchaser down at the bottom here?
Yes.
Just put your mailing address so they know where to send the bill.
Yeah, there you go.
Next item on the agenda is the Avatar contract. You all should have a hard copy of that.
Read it?
I think I said it in the email that Lauren went back and put the language in that was in the current contract, and then also increased the amount of the units or residences that would be looked at.
Make a motion, we enter into a 5-year contract with Avatar.
I'll second that. For the sake of discussion, Catherine?
Did they include, I haven't, admit I totally haven't had time to really peruse this as I should have, but did they include the clause that Tim emailed us about back in November, at least 30 days prior to the board of selectmen acceptance, blah, blah, blah?
They said yes, and let me just figure out where it's at, because he did send that to Lauren.
Thought I saw
If for
something
any
about,
reason either party desires to terminate the agreement, they may do so with 30 days written
Yeah.
notice to the other party.
That's not it,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I thought that's what you
No.
were
I didn't copy out the current one, I was looking at it online. No, this is at least, this is, once they have done the values,
Mm-hmm.
they review them with us
Mm-hmm. Here we go. How about
before we write a warrant.
Preliminary values posted on our website for 30 days.
No.
Posting begins when notice of new values are made.
No, this is language.
How about this one? Provide a report. No.
Oh.
Showing prior assessments as compared to newly established
No.
assessment? No. I don't see any
That's language.
30-day notice.
So should we research that and wait for John?
You have one more week.
oh,
I mean,
get it done.
certainly you can, but
She said she didn't have any problem including it, so
She didn't.
maybe she forgot.
I would be surprised if she did, but I can, if you accept it, I can say it's accepted contingent on making sure this is in here, and I can go look.
Mhm.
So we would approve it without signing it.
We could say accepted contingent on adding that.
Then we'd sign it next week.
Yeah. Because we made the motion to accept it.
Yes.
We've already made the motion to accept it, so.
Yeah, but there's nothing in there about,
Do you have the language? Did you write the
Yeah,
language?
it's right here, it's right here.
They have a copy of that email he sent out.
I thought I saw something with 30 that,
Well, there are different,
yep,
but if you're good with that, maybe you amend the motion to that, and then I'll make sure it's in there, and then next week you sign it.
would you like to amend that, Catherine?
I didn't make the motion.
I'll amend the
You can
motion
still amend it.
I'll amend my motion
To include that
Contingent.
language?
contingent on
And
adding the particular language. Jeannie, what's the,
relative to the 30 days prior to the board's acceptance of values during the revalue year.
relative to the board accepting the particular values?
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay.
We have an amendment on the floor. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we're voting on the amendment to add the language to the original motion. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Did you say aye?
No,
All those opposed?
I declined to vote. I still think that this should have gone out to bid.
The ayes have it, and now we're voting on the motion to extend the contract to Avatar for 5 years, contingent upon
Here it is.
whatever it's contingent
Here's
upon.
the language.
Okay,
It's on page 6, and it's under the update, includes the following. It's on the paragraph after the US PAC compliant report says at least 30 days prior to the board's selectmen's acceptance of value, Avatar
Got
will
it.
provide it.
Yep,
Is it verbatim?
yep, at least 30 days prior to this board of selectmen's
but
acceptance
you
of
read
values.
this.
Avatar will
Yes, you
provide
did.
a
I
report
pointed it
showing
out to
prior
you.
assessments.
It doesn't, so it doesn't have, it says here,
Yeah, so it's not verbatim.
no, it doesn't have, will provide a report listing in printed and digital form of all parcels and values. You know, I've had this conversation with Lauren, and she said, whatever, she said,
Okay.
oh, it's
Let's
literally
still have them put it verbatim.
All right, so there's a motion and a second on the floor as amended, not while there's a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
And I still decline to vote because I think this should have gone out to bid, and please let the record show.
Let the record show.
Thank you.
The motion passes.
All right. Back in November, I gave you 3 job descriptions: land use technician, land use coordinator, and building inspector job descriptions for your consideration. The changes in the technician and the building inspector was just to change the reporting to the coordinator, since we don't have a town planner anymore. Those were the only changes there. Relative to the coordinator position, Leanne went through the coordinator position and looked at the town planner's position and incorporated duties that were ascribed to the planner that she is now actively performing. So my question to you, are you prepared at this time to approve those job descriptions?
Have some questions.
All right. Yes.
So between the land use coordinator and the land use technician, on the technician's fund, reviews land use applications for initial completeness, manages land use case flow. That was crossed out. And I couldn't find it added to the land use coordinators. So my question is, who's going to do that? Because I think it's important that one or the other reviews land use applications for initial completeness.
So I didn't have the document in front of me, so now that I have it in front of me, what are you talking about?
On the land use technicians, underneath primary duties in yellow, it's crossed out, reviews land use applications for initial completeness and manages land use case flow. I didn't see that it was added to the land use coordinators. So my question is, who's gonna do that? Because I think it's important. A lot of applications come in to the planning board that are incomplete, very
Yes.
difficult to site plan. So someone needs to do that.
So on the second page, where it says responsible for case management and oversight planning and boarding application review, repair, that does not cover that?
I think it needs to be specific.
Okay, so if she adds it back into her position, or it needs to be somewhere, is what you're saying?
Wherever she feels, whether it's technician or coordinator.
Okay.
And then on, under supervision exercised on the coordinators, and part-time land use technician.
Yep.
Okay.
Part-time. Where are you saying part-time?
On the first page of the coordinators, under supervision exercise,
Received?
it just says supervises, it's hard for me to read yellow.
Okay, because I have supervision received.
No, underneath that, I've got supervision exercised.
Yeah, it's in yellow.
It's in yellow.
You don't have the right one.
Do I have a different one?
You have the one I have.
Oh, good. I don't want to be hanging out there.
Oh, okay, great, all right. I got it right here. I don't know what that was. You're looking at the land use, okay, you're looking at the land use coordinator. I was looking at the land use technician.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. So, under
Well, I'm
land
actually-
use coordinator, it should say
Part-time land use technician?
technician.
Oh,
So
yeah,
add one.
there's a word missing.
Okay, got it.
So in our housing standards, it requires that the town planner is the chairman of that board. Should the land use coordinator take that position?
Yes.
Or should it be listed under her primary duties?
I can do that. So add chair.
The Housing Standards Board Committee, or board, I don't remember the exact language.
Okay.
And also, over the years, the Article 14, which is the Wetlands Conservation District, and Article 5, which is, I forget, that's the other wetlands ordinance. Number 14, well, actually both, but number 14 specifically, I have it here.
Not referring to anything in here.
Well, I think it should, is where I'm going with this. There is a requirement in both of these that the Conservation Commission is consulted during different process of these. If they choose, for example, if they choose to hire a wetland scientist, then the Conservation Commission is consulted. Right here, the alternate, the applicant may retain such a scientist acceptable to the planning board and the Conservation Commission. In the past, the Conservation Commission has been forgotten that they need to be consulted during the processes of both of these articles in our zoning. And I think that it should be specifically stated in the land use coordinators that that is part of our primary duties. And I just wrote to coordinate the requirements of Article 14 in the Wetlands Conservation District and Article 5, which is, 15, which is groundwater protection.
board agree with that, I'll put it in.
I'm a yes. Here? Mm-hmm. Yes.
If you can give me that language, I'll put it in.
I'll hand it over, guys. Ow.
Anything else?
No,
Okay.
I think we are very lucky with our land use coordinator. I think
Once that's in,
she's gonna do great things for us.
well, once that's in, can we approve the job description? Or do you wanna wait until you put that in? You want an
I will
approval?
put them in, and then next week I'll have a final copy that you can
So
sign
we
off on.
approve, okay.
Just a reminder, this is the last meeting of the year.
Right.
Okay. All right, I can do that.
And
Then also on the action items is a review of the winter maintenance policy changes as suggested by Selectman Dawson. So, can you just let me back up? You didn't say anything about the building inspector, so you're okay with that?
Yes,
Okay,
I am.
I am,
okay.
Yes.
So make a motion to approve the building inspector's job description.
Okay, great.
Second. Second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
aye.
Aye. Peter?
Lee said aye.
Oh, I didn't hear it, sorry. The chair's between us, buddy.
I have one comment.
The motion passes.
About the building inspector. So on the bottom it says, and how he's going to enforce and housing rental standards ordinance.
Mhm.
So it's not exactly, it's housing standards ordinance, not rental.
Yeah, it doesn't have the word rental in it.
But I noticed when I was reading it today, I've read it so many, I can't tell you how many times I've read that document since we started it. But I did notice, in that document, nowhere does it say specifically that the health officer, the code enforcement officer, and the life safety officer from the district will conduct those inspections.
Who does it say will conduct those?
Three Stooges.
Nobody.
Well, we've appointed these people.
So, it just says that the Board of Selectmen will cause this to take place, but it doesn't specifically say who.
Or how.
So I'm just letting you know that that
Okay.
probably should be correct. Thank you.
Okay, so we're good with that part of the puzzle or anything?
Yeah,
Okay, so,
grammatically make that correct.
Richard, all right, so you're back up again.
All right,
Winter
winter
Yeah.
maintenance policy. You all got,
There were very few changes, and we all discussed it at the last meeting.
I have a comment.
Here?
Page 3, damage to private property, last sentence. The highway right-of-way is often 50 feet wide. Wrong! It varies all over the place. So I would write something to the effect that the highway right-of-ways in town vary. Please check your appropriate plans or maps. Because you've got areas of Route 3, it's only a right of passage. DOT doesn't even own the land.
is everyone good with
That
that
is so
change?
true, that is, right, I agree with
Everybody
that.
supports that?
Huh?
I'm asking,
Yep.
does everyone support that? Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure why we even put the highway right-of-way is often 50 feet wide. I mean,
I would just delete that,
just delete it, yeah. As Joe said, just take that out.
because it's
Or strike it totally, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Then take the whole sentence out.
So
Yeah.
take from the RSA, you want that out?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
So, back to the sidewalks, appendix 2. These aren't prioritized. Wouldn't it be simpler to simply take the appendix from the existing winter maintenance policy, where we had the public hearing, we prioritize the sidewalks, and put that in here,
Thank you, Catherine.
and be done with it?
So the original one that's here, which I have,
Yeah, I lost it.
Is this what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
So you want that in?
yeah, just put that right in
Put that
there.
in there.
For appendix 2?
And then when we add new sidewalks, you prioritize them, you put them in the category where they belong.
Okay, so I'm gonna take this and delete it and add that.
I think that's the easiest way to go. I mean, he's created these plow routes to work for him and his crew, which I'm not gonna touch.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute,
I'm looking for the
I
one
wrote
that
a
I
note here, so
corrected.
hold on a minute.
I thought there was another place in here where I saw not plowed.
Now, under sidewalk maintenance, now, I don't know if the board feels this way or not. We changed exceptions to this policy include, you crossed out village district and put town-owned sidewalks commonly used by students when school is in session. Well, we don't own some of those they're not only town-owned, they're state-owned as well.
But we clear them.
And
So-
the Tilton School owned on School Street.
Right, so we don't, I think town-owned is not appropriate here. I think if we say town-maintained sidewalks, winter-maintained, town winter-maintained, I should probably say, because some of them are not maintained in the summer by us. Because, do we maintain Main Street? I mean, it's not ours.
The sidewalks,
Those are our sidewalks.
those are our
On-
sidewalks. We paid for them.
There are sidewalks,
On the, by where the sign is to go up, where, welcome to Tilton,
Up here?
up here, those are our sidewalks.
and then up by AutoServe.
So what's in question is the sidewalk that goes over 93.
Yeah.
Right,
That is still in question, that was never resolved. We didn't build it, we didn't agree to maintain it.
right, and so School Street we don't own, that's
Part of it, School Street.
part of
we don't
school we
own.
do. I just don't wanna get us caught in that. I don't know if anybody else agrees. Do you think that we should change that, or do you think we should just leave it in our policy as town-owned sidewalks? Do you think that we should say town
Well, so
winter-maintained?
we shouldn't have any exceptions to our priority order. I found my corrected one.
Yeah, exceptions to this policy include town-owned, but it's not just town-owned ones.
So that shouldn't be in there. There shouldn't be any exceptions to our priority order. Sidewalks are cleared in priority order concurrent with road maintenance.
Right,
We should not have any exceptions to that. It is very clear, by the advice of our attorney, that sidewalks are cleared in order of their priority.
so then we need to take exceptions out of there.
Yeah.
So just take exceptions and say this policy includes town-maintained sidewalks.
Sidewalks are cleared in priority order with road maintenance. Sometimes we just get stuck with putting a lot of language in here that we
Right,
don't
and
need.
just say this policy includes town-maintained sidewalks commonly used by some.
Yeah, see, none of this really works with the, the priority list, because this is suggesting that we're gonna take it out of the priority list.
Right, because it's,
So the old policy simply says sidewalk winter maintenance is ranked according to high, medium, and low priority sidewalks. High priority sidewalks are sidewalks that provide access to public schools, town hall, municipal services, and town business areas. Medium priority sidewalks are sidewalks that provide access to the police station, post office, and businesses along East Main Street to Bittern Lane. Low priority sidewalks are sidewalks with limited pedestrian use.
then let's just put that language, strike out sidewalks maintenance altogether and put in that language back in to the winter maintenance policy, because wasn't that also vetted by the attorney?
Hmm?
Got it.
It goes with and then it continues on to page 3. And it does, high priority, medium priority, blah, blah, blah.
I think it's very, very particular on the sidewalks. I just don't want to get caught into that little
So
tinker
we should,
versus the town of Tilton again.
yeah, I agree with you, $170,000 is a huge hit. I think we should take the old, as you said, I'm repeating it, the section
old
that says
language.
sidewalk maintenance and plop that into the new one.
Just take out this whole paragraph and put in that paragraph there,
Yeah.
and we'll be good to go.
Are you in favor of this, Peter?
If it'll move
So
us
in
on,
the
yes,
current
Joe.
policy,
Okay, that's unanimous.
the current one, the one that's on the website,
Is that this one?
I believe so. If you look on, beginning on page 2 at the bottom, C, sidewalk maintenance. Begins with sidewalk maintenance is ranked according to high, continues over, it's dated January 7th, 2010.
Do you want that?
If we take all of section C,
Yep.
put that in to the proposed, and take out the draft section of
Okay.
sidewalk maintenance.
Okay, so I'm taking from the one that's on the website, C sidewalk maintenance, starts on page 2, goes to page 3,
Yep.
completely to the end. I'm gonna take that language and delete the language currently that says sidewalk maintenance. Delete that completely and put this in that place.
Yep.
Apparently.
All right.
Yep.
Everybody good with that?
Good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, we'll be back for that, no doubt. Okay, Gina, do you have anything else? that you'd
I
like
just
to-
want to point out to you that I have a second draft of the 2020 warrant article in your folder, which includes language per DRA that Tim got for the police station, so that's something you should take a look at. Pat asked on several occasions for a list of pay for moderators, assistant moderator, supervisors, the checklist, poll workers. I'm passing that down. I do not have the information in the chart for the supervisors of the checklist. I got that at a very late date today, so I'm going to give you that information and you can write it in if you would. Supervisors of the checklist here in Tilton make $50 per supervisor session. They make $100 for town meeting.
Supervisors of the checklist,
Yes,
they make $50
per supervisor session.
supervisor session.
They make $100 for town meeting. And they make $15 per hour for being present at any voting.
So that's $15 per hour at elections, right?
Yes.
Well, wait a minute, this doesn't spell out, oh, per election. But, election is 8 hours?
Well, in talking with Chuck Mitchell, it could be anywhere from 12 to 13 hours.
They're long days.
Really
You
won't.
said that before.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see, for Tilton, under assistant moderator, where it says $260 per election, and you see the little asterisk, if you go down, you'll see the asterisk explaining at $20 an hour times 13 hours. And then if you go over on the same line, relative to poll workers, you'll see how we came up with $180 per election. That's $15 times 12 hours.
Wow, look where it places us.
We're very generous.
Is that mandatory, or is that just something
No.
that somebody's picked out of the hat?
Picked out of that.
Yeah, they're getting over. They're London there.
Yep. Oh, they gave the chair an extra quarter, Joe.
Well, there you go.
You want a shiny nickel?
So,
Is Henniker saying, what is it saying, page 750, and Henniker saying they pay 750?
725 in New Ipswich.
Well,
It's not even 750, according to this.
Well, I think that this is the board's decision, and I think that this is really astronomical. I think we have to make decisions based on what it is best for the town of Tilton and a business, for a business sense, and not an emotional vote.
we usually go with
So
an
we're-
average.
We just hired someone for the Public Works Department? Not making much more than this, full-time, with experience. What are we thinking?
I think kudos to you for asking for it.
For what?
I said kudos to you for asking for this information.
Well, I think we need to make a change. I don't want to be the bad guy here, but I think it's time that we need to be, we look at every single employee and we look at it diligently and say, okay, look at it. And we say, are they within the realm? We did this for every single person downstairs working for us. And we said, are they within a reasonable amount with towns that are somewhat the same size, the assessed value of us, size-wise, and we adjusted accordingly within the last 10 years or so. And so that we weren't gonna lose good employees, but now you have people that randomly pick a number and say, okay, well, I'm gonna get $870 just for the election, per election, or $260 for the assistant, and then $180 for one of the ballot clerks. So we have to think about what this means. This is just, a few dollars away from full-time employees. Well, actually, the column on the right is just about what our new employees making. With lots of experience coming into the jobs.
What are you talking about?
So look on the right, on
That's
the
it.
second column.
Second call. The 260?
No, the 180. Well, the 260 is way over it. Way over. The $870, that's way over. So we hire somebody for $17 an hour, working full-time, 40 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that? Where's that going?
What happens though, when you have specialized things that only happen a couple times a year or so, they generally get a bump in rate because it's so infrequent.
And
Especially
this
if
is
you,
pretty important.
and if you have skills required to do the
But
job.
we've only been paying this amount for the last couple of years. In the 11 years that I've been here, we've never paid this kind of amount, ever.
Maybe we should ask them.
I've been asking this question. I've been asking this question every single year, the last 3 years, Catherine? I've been asking this question, because this is astronomical. I'm sorry, but it's astronomical. We in the last 11 years, is it 3 years that we've been paying this amount?
It went up at one point.
Yeah, way up at one point, and it's out of control, and we're just, at the end of the election, they've already done the work, they've already been promised that amount, so we pay the check, we write the check, but we haven't, and we say, well, it's too late now. Well, it's not too late now because it's budget.
So what do you propose? We have how many elections coming up in 2020?
Well, it used to all be volunteer.
Well,
However, I don't
Yeah,
expect
well-
that. I don't expect that.
There you go.
we have 4 elections, primary, town, primary, November.
4 elections, you're already looking at 1,000, 100, and, well, we've got how many
What did he
poll
say?
workers at $180 a piece?
It's on the, he's requested it, there's a line in the budget, and I don't have that information right in front of
Um,
me. I think it's got several years worth of. And what line would that be?
It's on page
Administration.
2.
Administration?
It's on page 2, but halfway down, it begins with
Okay, election
130.
registration,
salary moderator.
supervisors, moderator, 130.
And then you'll see the detail underneath the election registration line as well for the component.
It says 29 hours per election.
That's what he put on his budget request.
Moderator pay approximately 29 hours per election.
Well, there's definitely things in advance of the election that he does. That I can swear to. I can't list them all. Did we have, how many elections did we have last year? Just the one?
Who gets paid $30 an I'm sorry, we work all year long for not much more than that. That's a poor example, I know, but I just don't get it.
It occurs to me that if we make wholesale changes like that,
I think we need to call them in and talk to them.
might run the risk of having a revolt in that particular section of our.
Well, I don't get it. So we don't do our due diligence as selectmen because we may have a revolt?
Didn't say that.
I know what you're
just
saying.
Pointed out that it's a possibility that, and I'm all for having Mr. Mitchell come in and defend his numbers. Or not. We'll see how it plays out, but.
So $8,000 for 4 elections. We have
It doesn't count the town clerk's time before and after either. Or public
well,
works.
she's
It
selling.
costs more than $2,000.
Oh, it costs a lot more than that. I hear what you're saying, yeah. Notice nobody else is saying anything around here. They're all like
Saturday.
afraid to say something because it's like, they don't want to be the bad guy. Sorry. I think it should be cut in half.
Based on what?
I just can't justify doing this kind of money, paying someone $30 an hour to be at the election.
That's not what it
Unless
does.
there's a warrant article that says the moderator should get a stipend for being a moderator. Why don't we put that in the warrant article? I could at least justify that. And then he gets, that amount of money for being, if there's 4 elections, 2 elections, 1 election, whatever. But there's nothing generating that except the moderator putting in a bill for this and the selectmen just signing the bill. That's what I don't approve of.
Okay, so we should
We've
get,
not made a decision on this, and we're all just sitting back doing nothing about it.
not you,
Well,
you're doing something. I know, you're not the bad guy here.
I'm gonna be.
No, well,
I
maybe
sure am. I'm gonna
in
be
some
real
circles,
tied
but
and feathered in a month here.
So would you like
can we
to
get
ask-
Mr. Mitchell to
Yes.
come in and discuss his
Yeah.
budget?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That'll take care of that, huh, Pat? You can ask him then, and we can make our decision accordingly.
Why don't we all have questions for him, not just Pat? Unless you don't care.
I'm guessing
Am I the only
everybody
one?
will have questions.
Am I the only one concerned with
You're the
this?
one
If
who
I'm the
brought it
only
up.
one
I just
concerned
want
with
you
this,
to
I'll
know-
make a personal phone call to him.
I just
All right,
want you
let's
to
I'm
have
know.
waiting
him
for a full board. I'm trying to give John some,
Yeah,
Yeah, I have him come in. I'm just doing some math.
All right, so I will ask Chuck Mitchell to see if he can come in next week.
okay.
A couple other things, in the FYI, Bittern Lane. I did speak with John Chase and asked about any concerns the water district might have, and he and Scott Mitchell will come in next week.
Scott Davis.
Yes, Scott
No.
Davis, to come before the board and talk about their concerns relative to this conveyance of property. And the Conservation Commission is meeting on the 16th, and they'll discuss this as well. And the only other thing I wanted to mention is I received notice from, I think it was last week, I put in front of you that application for the Plan New Hampshire charrette, and I got an email letting me know that we were successful in getting the application. So,
Very nice. Thank you.
so, I think that's it for me.
Okay. Next on our agenda is other business, and I would take any public comment, if you have any.
Just a question, is the Avatar contract cost public information, or is that, they have to stay in-house right now?
It will be once it's, well, I guess it was approved.
It's not, yeah, that's public. Yes.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
was just
Never
curious.
was-
I don't have that
It's
number
in our
right
budget.
directly in front of you. Do you happen to know?
It's in our budget, John. Joe.
The other John.
The other John. Do we have a new?
But we pay a certain amount each year over the course of
Yeah.
the 5 years.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
2020, $35,040. Same with 21, 22, 23, 24, the fifth year, 109,320, the 3540 plus an additional 74,280 for the update.
It's crazy.
So the total contract for 5 years was 249,480, $250,000.
Thank you.
You will.
And actually, before you do any other, I guess I missed something. Lauren came up and she's got some tax exemptions, I believe, for the elderly that she'd like you to sign off on. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, I guess it was late last week, Selectman Fogg sent an email asking about a piece of property. Do you remember that? And so Lauren did research it, and she's prepared the form for you all to sign to get that taken care of. And that's it. Done.
You have a,
I do. I do have a few things, mostly housekeeping, if you give me about 5 minutes.
have at it.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I have had a momentous week.
Okay.
New grandfather of a little girl, and everyone's doing fine. And then I've been sick most of the week, which is like me at all. So, it's been a challenge. But anyway, so as the first item here is the merit transfers. And I just have it back here. Pass that around. This is what we do each year to allocate the amount of the merit lines, the merits that were awarded into the appropriate budget lines. And overall, across the town, there was, of the total amount budgeted for merits, there was about a $2,800 savings. In other words, $2,800 of the total was not distributed for various reasons. There were some declined. There were some changes in personnel. So the person that would have received a merit left. A new employee came in, wouldn't have been eligible for it, that sort of thing. So if you'd please review that and sign that, so that I can do the budget transfers.
This paper here?
Yes, yeah, down at the bottom. You
Oh,
see
this
the-
is my copy.
No. You see the signature lines
No, but
at the
I-
bottom?
This is my copy.
I can give you a more extensive
Can I-
one if you like. Anyway, that's the first item. Second item and third item are to lock in the CAI agreement. As I was out this week, I don't have something for you to sign, but I would like to get this done, so I've made a suggested motion here for you, which would authorize me to execute the agreement as per the proposal on November 18th, which I've also detailed here for you, which describes the conversion of our parcels into digital shape files, as well as the additional layers that we include at the time of the conversion. And then our agreement to the 3 years of the $3,000 per year web service for those shape files to be online. So if you would maybe take a look at that. I have included that entire document from November 18th at the back of this. And I've also gotten the best natural gas price I've been able to get in recent memory this week through Sprague Energy, and there's a listing on your third page here in my packet which shows Sprague and Direct Energy. There are only 3 suppliers that provide natural gas of this type for New Hampshire. So we're somewhat limited. The company that we were using went bankrupt, and we had a fantastic price with them, but I think they just probably extended that to a lot of people and priced themselves out. And they weren't hedged against their, what they thought that was going to happen in the market. But remarkably, natural gas is, if you look at the futures contracts for natural gas, where you would think it would be going up as we're getting into winter, it's actually been coming down some. And so anyway, I would recommend locking in at the 0.697 price per therm for 24 months. And for years, it's been rumored that there are going to be more natural gas suppliers for New Hampshire, but we just don't. There's just not that much competition in the marketplace here. And this is just the supply, obviously. So in order to do that, as we've done in prior years, they will hold these overnight, the pricing. So I've asked the board, and the board in prior years has allowed me to enter into those agreements with the supplier, and so I put a suggested motion there for you for that as well.
That said, I move that we enter into an agreement with, that doesn't make sense, Tim.
Where's that? Read it again, Joe.
I move that we enter into an agreement with 4 digital tax map data conversion.
Oh, you're on number 2, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's 4.
So there's no with in it.
That's correct.
All right, let me start again. I move that we enter into an agreement for digital tax map data conversion and GIS development as described in the proposal dated November 18th, 2019, including layers and updates through April 1st, 2020, for a one-time price not to exceed $6,000, and to provide web services for those digital parcels for a period of 3 years at a cost of $3 per year.
3,000.
I wanted it to be $3. At a cost of $3,000 per year. And further, to authorize the finance director to sign any necessary documents to complete the agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
3,000 per year, is that of January 1, December
That's a
31?
calendar.
Okay.
That's correct. And then keep in mind that any updates that we do after April 1st, 2020, those are time materials, which I described in the board before, and that we may look to put those costs, or recoup some of that cost through the planning board fees.
Pat? Catherine?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm good as well. And if there's no other discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. I would further move that we enter into a 24-month energy agreement for natural gas with Sprague Energy at a rate not to exceed the price of .697 per term, and to authorize the finance director to sign any necessary documents to complete the agreement. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, the next item on the second page are the encumbrances. I've listed out what I have currently, which are the air conditioning at 18,200,
100.
100.
or, okay,
That's what you had, that's what the paper said.
okay. All right, I thought it was up to 2. So 18,100, the completion of the Mango agreements that we haven't already paid for, which is 12,051. The Plan New Hampshire charrette for 6,000, and then the $6,000 for the digital parcel work that you just made a motion for. So that amount comes to $42,151 that we will encumber.
Does that bring our total pretty much to zero?
As far as I'm concerned, it does, yeah. Because that gives us a razor-thin edge.
Razor thin, 100 grand?
No, less than. Gives us about a $30,000 cushion there, and that can
Go quick.
That can go quick, depending upon what departments do and comp time and so on and so forth, things of that sort. But I think I've been through it several times. It's close, but I think we'll be okay. The last item I have is regarding a request to the trustees of the trust funds to remit $107,219.21 from the roads, streets, bridges, sidewalks, capital reserve fund to pay for the following projects that have been done this year, which are Old Route 3 paving, Main Street sidewalks, and Cedar Street. You have a listing of the items in your packet on that second page, and attached along with the list and the letter are all the copies of the checks and invoices for the trustees to review. And if you would please sign that so that I can provide that to the trustees and they can be reimbursed from the capital reserve fund.
You said there was a attached a letter with the invoices.
Yes, so on page 2 is the listing. This is the letter.
Okay.
For
And
the
then on
trustees.
page 2 of this is the listings.
Yeah, it's also on here, it's my item number 5, it has all the items here in your packet. It has all the vendors, the amounts, and columns for each of the projects.
But it, oh, I thought it went into detail somewhere else.
I didn't include that
Got it.
thick piece. If there's anything you'd like out of that, I can reprint it for you. And that is all I have for tonight.
I have one question for Tim before we leave.
By all means, go right ahead.
I'm noticing more and more the spongy part of these mics are going.
Yeah.
I see Jeannie's,
Yeah.
John's.
Yep, I have replacements.
You do?
I have a box.
That one's going all together.
Yeah, this is.
Oh, it's right sitting up there, I think.
Here, this needs to be tightened up. Yeah, I'll have to come up and look at all these mics. So I shall put it on my list. And I will, I don't know if you saw, but with the cruiser mileage report, I'm going to be reformatting that for the new year to add.
Adding those
So you'll
columns.
see the,
Right.
you'll see the change in mileage.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yep, it's just I'm putting it in with the, I have to redo their schedule for 2020 and bring over the data. When I do that, I'll have another sheet that I can use as a help that will give me that data.
Have you notified, I think it's Nate that takes care of the cruiser mileage, that you're gonna add the columns?
He won't even see it. It's not anything they'll have to do. It'll keep track of the columns from the week prior, and then it'll calculate the difference.
So it'll go automatically.
Yeah, yeah.
So how does it download from the vehicle?
When they service the vehicles, they physically go in and put in the mileage.
So every vehicle gets serviced every single week?
No, not necessarily. But,
So that's why it's not updated?
well, it would depend on if, generally they'll go in and look at the mileage and update it.
Which night is it, Sunday night?
Yeah, generally Sunday night.
I was
It is
told that
possible.
someone goes in and looks at it and then
Yes.
puts it
yeah.
in a database.
Yeah,
Who
so
does that?
I believe that's Nate. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the sergeant that
That's
does
what I
that.
thought.
But, I mean, it is possible if a car is out of service and down at Public Works.
That's when it gets updated.
It might not be, it might not be updated right away.
Right.
Until it is serviced, and then it would be updated. But,
Yep.
And
Okay.
then also, just last thing, the TAN was paid off this last week. We saved some money there, and also the new expense reporting. I've not only done that for the police department, but also Public Works. And this next week I should have it rolled out to everybody.
Do you take advantage of any Black Friday sales for the computers?
We were pretty well set. There were, I think, a few little things, just a few items that I did.
Is there anything else you need? Yes, it's the water.
So, just a question on the police building. If we bond the $4,903,705, we're gonna pay $2,943,690 in interest
Well,
over 25 years.
based on that particular quote. So
So this is a $7,847,395 project.
well, first of all, the Fed met since that sheet was done, and they held rates steady, saying they're anticipated to leave them steady through the election. So I anticipate that rate that we got from New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank will probably drop by at least a point. And so we'll be looking at probably much better rates, much more favorable rates, and much more favorable and realistic pricing of the bond. So that, what you're looking at there is really worst case. If you go a shorter term, you pay less interest, you have higher payments. but, so there will be different options. That just happens to be one
So
particular.
you're gonna provide us with,
Oh, absolutely.
okay,
That's
thank
just
you.
one particular view.
That one was just particularly alarming.
We could be anywhere from a 20 to 30 year, would probably be the most logical. Thanks very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Jim.
you very much. Okay. Would you like to speak?
Oh, no.
Okay, good night. We're going to go into non-public session. Thank you very much for coming down.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week, I hope.
Last one of the year, wouldn't miss it for anything.
Outstanding.
Have a good night.
Yeah,
You too.
Thank you.
Take care.
If you mind if I take the, zero with me as well, if everyone signed it. Did you want to sign it?
You want the door closed, sign out front?
That would be excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Nice.
I don't know if you all noticed, but we have the grant here with tabs. Did you notice that the last one you
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was
I
that
didn't
in the
notice
budget?
That,
Is that in the budget?
It's $1.76. I think I did get that on the Black Friday. All right, have a good meeting.
Thank you so much.
I'll see you Monday.
feel better.
Thank you.
Okay, so, I'd love to make a motion, except for I don't know why we're going into non-public session.
We are,
This is last second for me.
this is, has to do with,
Reputation. Okay, well, I got the wording right over here, so. And you wanted to add something about personnel in there? Okay. I make a motion to go into non-public session as per RSA 91A, colon 3, paragraph 2, C, matters which if discussed in public would likely adversely affect the reputation of any person, and A, dismissal, promotion, or compensation with any public employee or the disciplining of such employee. Second. Roll call vote.
Constantino, yes.
Dawson, yes.
Yes.
Jessamine, yes. And we are red is on. I make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public session as they pertain to personnel matters permanently and as they pertain to potential adverse effects on reputation permanent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No, it's your turn.
Motion
this
to
time.
adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Regular bread. Unwashed hands.
No!
Soap and water. German